Meeting will please come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Berard, Fleming, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
Thank you. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I have no opening remarks, although I do want to make a motion to defer 3 items, items 16, 17, and 19. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those 3 items are deferred. Does the general manager have opening remarks?
I'll have introductory comments on a follow-on item, sir, but nothing else for this section.
Thank you. Comments from commissioners on agendized items and requests from commissioners relating to departmental operations? Hearing none. Public comments, we have 3 speaker cards.
Yes, the first speaker is Kent Minalt. And please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kent Minot from Sherman Oaks. I've spoken before you before in support of your clean energy initiatives. I want to thank you for the generous rebates for home chargers in your Charge Up LA program. Time of use meter and the reduced rate for off-hour charging are great for both us electric motorists and for you, since charging at night and on weekends makes it easier to bring renewables online. I was pleasantly surprised to discover how affordable electric driving is. I quickly got my $2,500 rebate check from California Air Quality, and you folks generously provide free quick charges at many of your DWP substations. Much appreciated. I also found the contractor for installing the home charger to be very professional and competent, sustainable solutions. They work extensively with DWP in the Plug-in LA department. They held my hand through the visit by your inspector, Walter Smith, also very friendly and competent, and through the visit by the building inspector as well. Everything is now ready for LADWP to come and connect me up. I just had to call LADWP's Plug-in LA department. Well, this is where the problems began. After leaving a message, I received a return message from 2 days later, but it seemed the employee hadn't really listened to me. He told me to go to the website, but the website was rather confusing. It seems a renter like me can get a rebate from you with permission from the property owner, which I have, but it's unclear how to get the time of use account into my name. Now, phone tag continued until 10 days later when I managed to get a real conversation with another employee. Now, this woman was deeply caring, but was just as confused as I was about all the regulations and procedures. She said her main goal would be to ensure that I got my rebate and she'd get right back to me. Another week, and I started hearing messages from a third employee, this one with a decidedly more aggressive tone. After more phone tag, I finally talked to this third person. She insisted that the time of use meter had to be in the same name as the account for the rest of the property, so it couldn't be in my name, and that if it was in my landlady's name, I couldn't get the rebate since the name on the account had to match the name on the car's registration. Seeking the only possible way out, I asked if we could change the name on the account for the property so it was in my name. Then it would match the registration. Pause. She thought and then said, well, with my landlady's permission, yes. So I ran into the house, asked my landlady, and she kindly said yes, she'd do anything to help.
Could you wrap up your remarks,
phone,
please?
Victoriously gave the woman the news. Wait a minute, she said. I have to look at this account. She put me on hold for 5 minutes and then came back and said that because it was a commercial account covering 2 units, I'd have to pay $600 to set it up, not to connect the electricity, just to set up the account. I protested this was highly unjust and that nothing on the Charge Up LA website gave the slightest warning of all these
Mr. Minalt, can you please wrap up your
problems.
remarks?
I'm sorry?
Can you please wrap up your remarks? Your time is up.
Yes, I'm wrapping them up. I'm here to ask for your help. If you help me get through this bureaucratic brick wall and hidden fees, you will also help millions of other Angelenos who are renters like me and want to adopt electric driving. And actually, you'll help yourselves, because electric driving is going to help you folks meet your state-mandated emissions reductions. And if you create a brick wall that prevents us from implementing our electric driving, that'll put a crimp in your day as well. So I'm Kent Minot from Sherman Oaks. please help me.
If you could leave your name and how to contact you with the officer, we
I've
will.
got it all right here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Robin Doino.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Once again, I'm here, as last month, I want to encourage you from the people of Mar Vista to not let our new developments in solar energy and in the other wise developments become so privatized that DWP becomes diminished. We want to continue to support DWP, and we ask for any direction as to how we can keep DWP viable and not let the utilities go the way of our internet services. Thank you. Robin
you.
Doino, Mar Vista.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Myra Beaumay.
Hi, I'm Myra Boym, and I was here last month, and I gave a detailed outline position paper which concerned privatization of the grid. In the meanwhile, the media has inundated us with stories about solar panels and storage batteries. The titles of these articles speak for themselves. New York Times, utilities see solar panels as threat to bottom line. Take part daily. Tesla wants to turn your home into a personal power plant. Scientific America, will Tesla's battery for homes change the energy market? Off-Grid announces, living off the grid will soon be status quo. The Verge declares why Tesla's battery for home should terrify utilities. While we're not terrified, we are very concerned. When I installed my solar panels, I had to go to a private sector. When I installed an electric car charger, I had to go to the private sector. Now, the private sector is offering to sell me affordable storage batteries. This means I can choose to go off the grid. At first, this sounded terrific, but then I began to envision a private electric service that looks like our current internet service providers and TV cable companies. High cost, poor service, and frustrating customer relations. DWP may not be perfect, but it theoretically answers to us. So we're asking for your help in pushing this agenda forward. So anything you can offer or suggest, we would appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that was our last card for item 4.
We move to agenda item 5, comments from ratepayer advocate on agendized items.
I have one comment on one of the consent items, very short, and I will likely have other comments for items later in the agenda.
Great, thank you. Okay, what we're going to do now is this. We're going to focus on item 6, approval of the minutes, which hopefully will not take very long. I will then ask whether there are any items to be removed from the consent calendar and have a vote on those items remaining on the consent calendar. And then we will defer all of the outstanding items, those that get removed from the consent calendar, if any, as well as the regular calendar items. And we will move up Management Report C pertaining to Joint Training Institute and Joint Safety Institute audits. So first, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting on April 23rd? The commissioners present were Levine, Barad, Fleming, and Noonan.
So moved.
Second, those in favor? Aye. Those minutes are approved. Are there any items which any commissioners would like to see removed from the consent calendar?
12, please.
Commissioner Noonan would like to remove item 12.
I have to recuse on 7.
And Commissioner Funderburk has to recuse on 7, so we will remove 7 from the consent calendar.
A very short comment on 9.
And so we will remove 9 from the consent calendar so that Dr. Pickle can do his short comment. And that leaves items 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15 on the consent calendar. Is there a motion on those items?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those consent calendar items are approved, and we will hear after the audit presentations items 7, 9, and 12 before going to the regular agenda. So now I'd like to move to item 21C, Joint Training Institute and Joint Safety Institute audits. And I would like to ask the controller and also Mr. Santana to both come to the witness table, and I'd like the controller to proceed first, Mr. Santana to proceed after that, and then we will open both audit presentations for discussion.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, I had some introductory comments at the beginning of this item.
I do not mind, without objection. Oh, and by the way, we do have one speaker card on item 21C. So what I'd like to do is call on the general manager for her comments, call on the speaker card, and then ask the two gentlemen, distinguished gentlemen, for their presentations.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking the Controller and the CAO for their work, and Mayor Garcetti, as well as the City Council, for demanding that these audits take place. I'm grateful that they've been completed, so we can move forward with implementing the recommendations and putting the work of the trusts onto a new path, one of greater accountability and, I believe, greater effectiveness. From day one, I believed that the work of the trust is the public's business and that the work of the trust should be accountable and transparent. Simply put, our customers deserve to know how the money they entrust to us is spent. In addition to transparency, we are committed to reform. The DWP management trustees to the trusts will push for implementation of the audit's recommendation consistent with the memorandums of understanding. I believe that going forward, implementation of the Controller's and CAO's recommendations will assist the trust in gaining public credibility and allow them to more clearly focus on their mission of providing safety and training support for our employees who are members of IBEW. These recommendations include strengthening financial controls over the trust by formalizing financial policies, including those governing procurement, travel, expense, transportation, and other activities, evaluating and recommending a merger of the two trusts in order to realize efficiencies in streamlined administration, including establishing a position of executive director, improving program planning and reporting, and establishing performance measurement and reporting, including key performance indicators and outcomes. As management trustees, we will advocate for these changes on our employees' behalf. However, as you know, progress will require agreement between the labor and management trustees. You have my commitment to make every effort to reach that agreement on implementing these recommendations that are consistent with the MOU. It's also important to note some of the steps cannot be taken by the trustees alone and would require an amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the City and IBEW. And finally, it's important that I share something with you. The trustees were advised that their review of the draft audit needed to be completed within 3 days and that a response letter was required within that time frame. Since a detailed review and response was not possible in 3 days, the trustees responded with a brief letter stating in part they needed more time to review, among other comments. With respect to those comments, I regret allowing my own frustrations with the audit process overall to lead me to agree to some characterizations which were not appropriate, and for that I apologize to the Mayor, the Controller, and this Board. On behalf of the management trustees, we plan to embrace both the Controller and CAO's recommendations for the trusts and work to ensure that they operate in such a way they provide the greatest benefit to their beneficiaries, IBEW members, and do so consistent with developing and maintaining the public's confidence. I believe that the recommendation in these audits form the basis of a good plan to move forward, and my fellow management trustees and I are anxious to begin that work in concert with the labor trustees. That having been said, it always bears repeating, DWP has among the lowest power and water rates in Southern California. Don't lose sight of all of the good news. We've been steadily improving operations, working hard to be more accountable through actions such as the benchmarking report that was recently completed and published by our corporate performance unit that showed our rates were low, our reliability high, and most notably, our operating costs competitive and reasonable when compared to other utilities. We've been working with our customers to achieve record participation in our water conservation rebate programs, continuing to meet critical path deadlines on water quality projects, and developing plans to ramp up investment in aging water and power infrastructure. And while I could go on, let me close by saying we will learn from the audits, we'll make the changes we need to give the ratepayers the reform they deserve, and they are already seeing elsewhere in the department. And I appreciate the opportunity to make some introductory comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know I'm speaking for my colleagues when I say we appreciate and warmly welcome that statement. Public comment card, Barbara?
The speaker is Jack Humperville.
My name is Jack Humperville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. Obviously, one of the things that upset a number of people were certain comments that were made in the letter that Marcy referred to. I'd like to speak in defense of Marcy. I'm not sure of all the circumstances. I haven't read all the documents as thoroughly as I'd like. But from my perspective, Marcy has done a very good job. She's been open and transparent. We may not like some of the answers, but she's been very honest and direct with us. She has built a good management team despite a number of people having left on you, whether it's Randy or Jim, both people who we respected, but you now have Marty, although I have to listen to his jokes, who appear to be very competent people. A lot of the stuff that's going on here is not your responsibility. The customer information system and the trusts were all there before. You just have the privilege of cleaning it up. I also don't understand all the ins and outs working with the City Council as well as Union Boss Darcy. That can obviously be very complicated. The other thing is I think Marcy has done a very good job. One of the big fears is if Marcy left, who do we get? That, from my perspective, is a very scary thing, especially given all that's going on with the Department of Water and Power, whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's the drought, whether it's renewables, as well as, unfortunately, a rate increase. So from my perspective, I support Marcy. I think a number of people at the DWP committee that met on Saturday, there were about 50 people there, all support Marcy. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Galprin. Welcome, and let me just underscore General Manager Edwards' appreciation of the work that you have done and the leadership that you have shown in ensuring that this audit occur and in completing the audit. We welcome you and are looking forward to hearing from you.
Good morning, and thank you very much to commissioners, to the General Manager, to the CAO, to ratepayer advocate, and to everybody who's here this morning. Thank you for your time. I want to express my gratitude for you moving so swiftly to put our presentation of the audit of the Joint Training Institute and Joint Safety Institute on today's agenda. I think we all know that safety and training are absolutely vital for every organization, and notably at DWP, where the workforce is called upon to do very important and sometimes dangerous work to keep our power on and to keep our water flowing. And because training and safety are so important, it's all the more vital that monies and efforts that the city invests in training and safety be transparent and accountable. Let me begin by saying that it's no secret that this audit was not an easy one to perform. We all know that my office had been blocked from doing what I believe is a charter authorized work, and most notably by the labor trustees, unfortunately, who objected to our desire to look and make public the financial workings of these two institutes. Nevertheless, our office and our terrific auditors, both inside the Comptroller's office as well as the firm that we retain, Crowe Horwath, pushed ahead and persevered. They transcribed thousands of bank account and credit card transactions recreated the details of the trust spending. The details thereof are, of course, in our audit, but also on utilitypanel.la, where you'll also find a great deal of other information about DWP's finances and workings, as I'm sure you know. Why? Because the money that funds these two trusts is, I believe, ratepayer money, public money, and the trust should treat this money like we treat all public money, which is to say responsibly and transparency. And that transparency is a hallmark of good government. It transforms the way that we do business. And it turns ordinary people into government watchdogs and enlists their help when we have all that information out there for everybody to see. I'm proud that my office finally was able to open up the financial workings of JTI and JSI to public scrutiny. And for the first time since these trusts were created, to have shed light on their expenditures and inner workings. Now that I've spoken a bit about my office's purpose in undertaking this audit, let me turn to our findings. And I won't address each finding. I know you've probably read the audit, and my auditors who are here can answer specific questions about each point in greater depth for you. So instead, let me summarize. The trusts operate in an environment of lax oversight and what we believe to be inadequate financial controls. The safeguards that public institutions usually put in place around the use of public funds are lacking. Various expenditures appear to have little relationship to the trust's missions or goals, and management of the trust appears to have had a cavalier attitude toward the use of public money. Now, that is not to say that nothing meaningful has gone on at the trusts, or that all of the trust's expenses have been unnecessary. But trusts need to, pardon the pun, earn our trust, and need to be trustworthy. Now, conferences can be perfectly appropriate. The same is true for travel. The same is true for meals. The same is true for reimbursements. But what we cannot and should not abide by is the following. First of all, as I mentioned, that lack of transparency involved in the expenses. For example, records explaining the purpose of trips or documenting the approval process for travel are lacking or often don't exist. Likewise, the trust handed out 19 credit cards to employees over the period of time that we looked at, which was a 5-year period, but failed to write up policies that could govern the use of those credit cards. And hence we had about $421,000 for hotel, restaurants, travel, meetings, conventions. Now, some of them individually are not troubling, but taken as a whole, I think that many of them are. There's something of a general culture of excess, dare I say, at the trust. Salaries that, at least according to our auditors, are out of line with comparable civil service jobs in California. Huge gasoline expenditures for personal vehicles. And a lack of clear indication as to why certain contractors are picked. Now again, not every contract necessarily needs to be put out to bid through these trusts, but there must be accountability and there must be transparency. Now the DWP says it spends more than $100 million annually on safety and training programs, and I've seen numbers as high as $117 million. How do these trusts augment or complement the DWP's programs? No one has yet to really explain that to me adequately. And while we performed a financial and not a performance audit of these trusts, the question remains, why are they necessary if we're already spending in excess of $100 million plus on safety and training? Now, according to the response issued by the trust to our audit, it said DWP accident rates have soared. And I must say that I'm concerned about that. If that statement is correct, then it suggests an overall failure of safety and training. Moreover, our audit reported that the trusts have accumulated about $11.3 million. This was as of July the 1st of last year, enough to fund them for nearly 3 years, given what they have been spending. Either we're doing great in safety and training, and they don't need to spend more, or money that's been set aside for much-needed safety and training is simply languishing. Either, I think we can all agree, would be unacceptable. And so, should the city be giving these trusts more ratepayer money when they aren't even putting much of it to use? And when we have so many questions about that which they have been spending? And if accident rates have truly soared, that, as we know, can be extremely costly for the city. So among other things, this was not actually part of our audit, But I think that the board also deserves a full accounting of accident rates at DWP, their causes, their relationship to the rate, and to the cause of those workers' compensation claims that no doubt result therefrom. So what's to be done with these trusts? Now, it will depend to some extent on the legal counsel that is given both to this commission as well as to the city as a whole. But this is the recommendations that we had. First of all, it has to be remembered that this money can only be spent with the vote not only of the labor trustees, but also of the management trustees. The spending could not have happened without them. And the city and the DWP, I believe, should explore all of its rights and remedies in terms of future spending and future votes for spending by those management trustees. And any spending must be with formal controls and ongoing and transparent reporting. There has to be real goals and ways to measure those goals. And any money that might be given to the trusts must be based on need and upon performance, not just to give it. Now, of course, that is going to require some thought of how to do that from a legal perspective, but I believe that that's an important principle. And if the trusts are to continue, our auditors and the CAOs really saw no reason for two trusts and two sets of administrative costs. The estimates that our auditors came up with was a savings of perhaps up to $739,000 per year. And the big question of the reason for existence of the trusts. Are they living up to their stated purposes, or is it time to think about concluding them? So I call upon this board to do what I know you want to do and what you are very committed to doing, and that is to work with policymakers, other stakeholders, all interested parties to bring accountability and reform to the JTI and JSI and the benefits that that will have in terms of reform, transparency, and accountability for the DWP as a whole. I know that not everything can be fixed with a stroke of the pen, if only, and I believe we must respect the collective bargaining process, which is the heart of our commitment to our employees. But some of these changes can be made right away, which is to say, before the trust send us a bill for even more money. With respect for your authority and great appreciation for your work, I ask you to reform these institutions, to make all of the operations of these trusts and the DWP as a whole transparent, to continue your commitment to safety and training of city employees, and to do what's right by our city's residents, businesses, and ratepayers. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you, and I'm available to answer questions and also to bring up our auditors at such time as you might like to answer any specific questions.
Thank you very much. And again, we greatly appreciate your leadership and your work. Before opening this to questions, I'd like to call on Mr. Santana for an overview of his audit.
Good afternoon. My name is Miguel Santana. I'm the CEO for the City of Los Angeles. I'd like to ask Michael De Castro and Scott Bryant to join me. I'll give some introductory comments, but I'd like them to specifically walk you through the findings of the audit.
No, that's fine. I'm actually, this way I can see a little better.
I'll start off by giving some general comments. As you know, these audits are as a result of a settlement that was reached with the trust that was facilitated by the city through the city council and the mayor and supported by all of you. And as you could see, the outcome of these audits is important, both in ensuring that their operations are consistent with the general mission of the trust, as well as to answering some of the outstanding questions that you as commissioners had, the city council and the mayor had, as well as the public. When we were tasked with this responsibility of conducting the performance audit, we made the decision to bring in outside auditors to ensure even greater objectivity. So we brought with us consultants with Watson Rice, Michael De Castro, as well as Scott Bryant, who were given general instruction by me but were asked to conduct their work in a professional manner and ensure that they were given access to all the documents that they requested, as well as all the interviews that they sought out, and they were. The audit itself was completed in mid-February. As you could see, it was dated at that time. But out of respect to the controller, I agreed to release the audit consistent with his. And in the attachments that you could see in the first attachment, we did receive a response by the trustees, signed by both Mr. D'Arcy and Ms. Edwards, adopting all of the recommendations that we have in our report. The findings that were achieved and the recommendations are actually very consistent with those made by the controller. They seek to bring about better accountability, to identify how do you measure performance and value, ensure to strengthen the governance of the trust so that the trustees are better informed and empowered to make effective decision making. And they're also looked at ensuring that there's greater transparency within the organization by adopting a series of policies and procedures that they will be required to follow. So with that, I'll ask the representatives from Watson Rice to walk you through the specific findings.
Good morning. I'm Scott Bryant. I'm the partner in charge of management consulting and performance audit for BCA Watson Rice, and conducted most of the performance and operational evaluation. Just to start off, go over what our project objectives were as assigned by the CAO and as outlined in the settlement agreement. First, we were to review administration of the two institutes, including looking at policies and procedures, practices, and compliance with those policies and procedures, but then also looking at best practices. So one of the things that we did was we went out to nonprofits, nonprofit associations, and so on, and in each of the areas of trust management or nonprofit management identified, we listed a series of best practices and then compared what each of the institutes were doing in those areas. And you'll find that in the body of the report. We also looked at, one of the issues was how do we know what's being accomplished by these institutes? And so we looked at what had been established in terms of goals, objectives, and most importantly, performance indicators. Most of the goals and objectives of the institutes were really outlined in the trust documents. And if you look in the appendix of our report, we lay out what those goals were. They are all associated with improving safety within DWP, improving training within DWP, trying to improve the workplace and the work environment. But there weren't really a series of performance indicators. So our job was to one, look at what was being used by the institutes to measure their own performance, and then to develop a recommended set of performance indicators going forward, again, as required by the settlement agreement. Our overall conclusion is very consistent with what the Controller's Office came up with. We were interacting earlier with the Crow-Horvath team, and we were kind of saying, hey, great minds think alike. A lot of our recommendations, findings and recommendations were very consistent. There are definitely some improvements that are needed in governance and oversight of the institutes, the organization structure and management, some of which is structural within the trust agreements themselves, and then the policies and procedures. There are opportunities for improvements in each of those areas. We did conclude also, though, that the institutes were generally administered consistent with the trust agreements, that they were following the directions and the requirements for the most part as established by the trust agreements. And we also found that the board, with some exceptions, had provided leadership and direction for the two institutes. We reviewed all of the minutes, all the agendas, all the minutes, and so on for the 5-year review period, and it was clear that the board was active and was providing direction and involved in ensuring that the institutes were moving in the right direction. And the institutes were active in providing the functions and services that were envisioned when the trusts were were created in terms of interventions with safety, doing safety training, those kinds of things. We found that they were active in those kinds of things. In terms of governance and oversight, some of our recommendations, one is the board was involved in strategic planning, and during the 5-year period, they actually held 3 strategic planning sessions, which were positive, and they came out of those with some strategic direction. We felt that those efforts could be significantly enhanced, both by making sure they do it every year, do it before their budget is set, come out of those meetings with specific initiatives, and that those then initiatives translate into specific actions by the administrator. So strengthening some of what they had already been doing. Then require more formal information on items that require board action, board decision making. Just like you as a board, you receive agenda items and backup information at least a week ahead of time before you're called upon to make decisions regarding those items. We felt that that would be a better practice, and that is a best practice for governance. So we thought that would be a good thing for the Board of Trustees to do as well. And so that's a recommendation. And then probably one of the more significant ones is to develop a performance measurement framework, to do monitoring, and to develop and release annual reports on the performance of the institutes. There had been quite a bit of effort into tracking what we would call activity indicators. So we held this many classes, we had this many participants, and that's important, just as a baseline of workload. Here's what we've been active doing. Again, we recommend that they continue doing that activity tracking. But we also are suggesting a series of outcome indicators that they start tracking and measuring. And some of those have to do with how their training is being received, evaluations of the training, whether or not it makes an impact on actual behavior of the employees that are going through the training. Then also looking at actual incidents. There's been some informal looking at incidents of safety issues and so on, but more formalized tracking of those as well. And then one of the things that the Safety Institute did was they conducted a survey of DWP employees through contract to find out, get information on the culture, the safety culture or climate here at DWP. And we felt that that could be an effective baseline. And if they did that survey every year, and they could measure whether or not DWP was making progress in terms of the safety climate or safety culture. So that's an important performance indicator, and doing the same thing on the training side as well. And then one of the activities of the institutes is doing kind of interventions. And this is, if there's a safety issue that's brought to light, they can more quickly respond to those. And some of their most effective efforts have been in those areas. So we're also suggesting that they develop a methodology and an approach to evaluating the effectiveness of those interventions. And we've laid out in our report how to do that based on information from the National Institutes for Occupational Safety and Health. That I think is one of the most significant improvements that could be made, and it's a way to show this board, the ratepayers, and the public, again, what's being accomplished with ratepayer money. Structure and management, some of the improvements here. We agree with the controller. The institutes, the boards operate as one board, even though that legally they're two. There's no real functional reason to have two. It's just legally they're two different. So merging the two institutes, we think, would be a positive thing, improve operational effectiveness as well as efficiency. Right now, under the trust agreement, it stipulates that there will be 4 administrators all at the same level, and so there's no real leadership structure built into the institutes. So we're recommending that an executive director position be established. Then to take a look at the staffing of the administrators and whether or not this is the appropriate number and responsibilities. And then to require that each administrator develop annual program plans, performance objectives, and that the board or the executive director conduct annual performance reviews. And then lastly, in terms of policies and procedures, and here we had a lot of overlap with the controller's team's conclusions. Procurement and contracting definitely needs to be strengthened. There was no policy on how to procure goods and services. The travel and expense policies need to be strengthened and adhered to. And then the policy on the use and reimbursement of personal vehicles also needs to be addressed. So those are the highlights from our report. We're happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call Mr. Galperin back up as well so that the commission members can ask questions of both Mr. Santana and Mr. Galperin. I want to thank Mr. Santana and his audit team, as well as Mr. Galperin and his audit team for such a helpful audit and presentation. I have very brief comments, and we'll summarize them and then call on my commissioners. Procedurally, as both of you made clear, some of your recommendations are beyond the scope of what we and the trustees themselves are able to accomplish without changing the MOU. When we get to combining the trusts, for example, and questions with regard to resources, those are issues that would require a change in the MOU. Speaking for myself, I'm very hopeful. First of all, I'm very pleased that the trustees have already agreed to accept all of the recommendations from the CAO's audit. I think that's a terrific first step. I'm extremely hopeful that they will also accept all of those from the controller's audit that can be accomplished without changing the MOU. I'm very hopeful that the management trustees, and I'm confident that the board will want the management trustees to advocate the changes that are included in the controller's audit that go beyond some of the changes that are recommended in the CAO's audit. I intend to offer a motion at the end of the discussion to ask the management trustees or require the management trustees to report back every 90 days on the extent to which the recommendations that have been made by both the controller's audit and the CAO's audit are proceeding. These recommendations pertaining to oversight and transparency and controls and governance and metrics, I believe should be almost automatically accepted by the management trustees. I fully recognize, as do my colleagues, that the management trustees cannot unilaterally impose these, that they need to obtain the agreement of the labor trustees. But at a minimum, we can request of the management trustees, and I, particularly judging from the general manager's earlier statement, believe that it pretty much goes without saying that they will do all that they can to accomplish the recommendations of both of these audits. And I will request at the end of the discussion that she report back every 90 days on the success that she and her colleagues on the management side have in implementing the recommendations from both of the audits. Are there questions or comments from commissioners?
If I may, I also just, pardon me for the interruption, but I wanted to make sure to introduce Bert Nuring and Lisa Voller, who are partners in Crow Horwath, and to also make them available to answer questions as well.
And let me, on behalf of the commissioners, thank you for your very constructive and helpful work. Commissioner Noonan.
Thank you. I wish that I could make a motion to annul this contract. But given the fact that our hands are really tied, given the MOU, I feel personally obliged to say that the abuses showcased within the audit are an embarrassment to this department and violate the goals and missions of this board's promise for transparency. I understand training and safety is a vital necessity for our employees, but this mission is in the wrong hands. I wish and hope that when we negotiate the MOU going forward, that we reconsider the allotment of this money to have it procured through the private sector, an entity that will be better held accountable. I appreciate your recommendations, but as a commissioner right now, I'm really, really embarrassed that this has happened. And I wish that I could do more personally, but I understand that we can't.
When we get to your motion, my friendly amendment would be every 30 days, just because I think that's every other meeting, and I don't want to go 3 months before hearing back. This is just.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
And then, what happens if the labor trustees do not agree to these? These are rather small changes. I would have preferred wholesale change. I'd echo Commissioner Newton's concerns. The labor trustees in the past have had difficulty accepting common sense solutions. What happens procedurally if they don't accept these?
That's where we get to the MOU. I mean, that's the frustration that Commissioner Noonan has just expressed. I think we all share that frustration. The MOU that was agreed to between the city and the IBEW, Local 18, establishes these contours. We have sought legal opinions in the past from the city attorney asking what redress we have. And I don't recall the specific language, but the gist of it was we don't have redress until the MOU expires.
Which is 2017.
I believe so, yes. We could ask the city attorney to take another look, but I think they took a pretty thorough look the last time around. Does the CAO have a view on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, as it relates to the recommendations, certainly in our audit, and you know, as both the controller and I have identified, there's a huge amount of overlap between the two audits in form of the recommendations. Both the labor and management trustees have adopted or concur with the recommendations that we've issued, including merging the two trusts, which involve a number of legal processes to get through, but not impossible. All the other elements in our report don't require any amendments to the MOU. They're about how the trusts are governed, how they're managed, how they define what success looks like, how do they ensure greater accountability within the organization, how they're staffed, and the policies and procedures that they themselves can and should adopt. And what is necessary for the MOU is the departments and the city's relationship with the trust. They are established in the MOU, how they're funded, as well as some of the founding trust documents. And so should there be an effort to change that relationship, then yes, there would have to be an opportunity when the MOUs expire to have that conversation, in the same way we would probably have a series of other issues that we would want to raise through the MOU process. And this will be one of several that I can imagine that we have, like we do with all of our bargaining units. But when it's specific to the findings in the audit, at least certainly in the CAO's audit, we believe that they all can be done within the context of the existing structure that exists, and I believe they will.
Well, right. So it's the second part I want to come to. I believe they can. Right? These are all fairly minor tweaks that you're requesting. The question is, will they? And the labor trustees have not always been the most willing participant in any type of reform. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how often we've been having this conversation since this board was formulated, right? Since we all showed up and we were allegedly agents of change, right? We've been having this conversation over and over and over again.
And there is a process for that too, just to be clear. It doesn't all have to go to the MOU. We don't have to go from 0 to 60. There is a process of arbitration that is set in the documents that when when the management and labor trustees do not agree, there's a very specific process that can be followed by either side, that either side could exercise that right to insist that their point of view be considered at the next level. And so even though under your scenario, even though both sides have actually voted to concur with the findings in our audit, if your concern is that when the rubber meets the road they're not going to be implemented, then there is another process before the MOU expires that management has a right to pursue, and that is outlined in the MOU as well as the trust documents themselves.
Well, I was going to let the controller.
There is, in fact, that process which is in the trust documents for arbitration, although I have to say I'm rather circumspect about it, in that it hasn't worked particularly well. The reason that we were in a year-and-a-half battle to get this information was because there was a disagreement as to whether we would be allowed in to get the information that we wanted, a disagreement between the labor and the management trustees, and essentially it deadlocked. And that deadlock and that kind of structure that can lead to deadlock continues to exist. And that's something that's problematic to me. The other is that while I think it would be certainly a better step than doing nothing to merge these two trusts, it still, A, doesn't answer the question of what exact function are they filling that the other safety and training programs of DWP aren't already filling. Moreover, if money would be saved by, let's say, bringing these two together, if the city continues to just pay the same amount of money and that MOU provides for that and doesn't provide that it is based upon performance or based on what actually is being accomplished, that too is something of a problem. And it should also be noted that I think that it will be very good if, in fact, the various recommendations are adopted by these trusts. But does that mean that we get essentially an open checkbook of the trust, the same way that we now have an open checkbook of the city, the same way that we now have an open checkbook of DWP that is available for everybody to see online? And I think that it was absolutely vital that we were able to put that out there, because actually seeing the numbers, seeing the transactions, seeing specifically where payments went to on credit cards, I think is very important, not just a financial report that is a couple of pages. It has to be really very specific, I think, for it to be meaningful in terms of accountability.
And so can I ask, as this moves forward, assume against our past history that the labor trustees do agree to this, what's the process as we move forward, especially for the controller, to keep track of these expenditures, to see where the money is going? How will that work? How will that be reported back?
Well, certainly I think a good way to do that would be the same way that we do so now in terms of reporting the essentially virtual checkbook of DWP, which was put on the utility panel as of the last 2 months, the same way that we have that online for all the expenditures that are made by the city as a whole. There are platforms for that to be done. Ours is one such platform and is very user-friendly and easy to interact with.
But there's, I'm trying to figure out, will there be a requirement that this information is disclosed in these ways and disclosed on a platform that's available?
Well, I think that's the question that is for this board to hopefully help resolve.
If I could bring some clarity to that question, and perhaps the city attorney could help me with this. So to give a little context, if you recall, this settlement, which allowed for these audits, is as a result of multiple lawsuits. And one of the lawsuits is tugs at the very question that you're asking. And it talks about the controller's right to audit, and in essence, the nature of the funds themselves, and whether or not this is a quasi-public agency or a separate, entirely separate entity, like any nonprofit or any kind of organization outside of the city. That lawsuit is still moving forward. As part of the global settlement, both parties agreed that this principle about giving the controller the right to audit, even when not being asked, is so important that we could not abandon it. On the other side, they feel equally as strong. So the outcome of that conflict was really a compromise, if you will, that for a period of 5 years there would be an opportunity to have performance and financial audit, where our two offices would have the opportunity to look and to provide the kind of findings that you currently have. And so the settlement allowed for that. Ultimately, the department's ability to answer that specific question you raise is tied to the outcome of that litigation, because that's what's bringing clarity to that underlying issue.
So prospectively, we will have no sense of where this money is being spent?
The settlement that was reached by this commission, by the city, facilitated by the city attorney, provided a window of 5 years in which this analysis would be done.
5 years retrospective?
Yes.
Right. So I'm asking going forward, if the labor trustees agreed to this, what access will you and the public have to information as these trusts, if the trusts stay in the current, and I don't even like the word trust with these entities, but if these entities move forward, how will the public know how the money is being spent tomorrow and the next day and 6 months from now?
I think this is a question actually best posed, quite frankly, to the management trustees, because the reality is that no money can be spent pursuant to the documents of these trusts without the agreement of the management trustees. And so that's a question that has to be asked of management trustees.
Yeah, may I? This fits right into my question. So my understanding was that it required 2 signatures of the trustees to sign checks. I can't believe that 19 credit cards were issued, and is it possible within the MOU to take those credit cards away? Because I don't think any of these individuals should have credit cards. I think that if we are really focusing on training and safety, there should be thought put into it. There should be bids. They should be reviewed by the board, and then the 2 people signing the check should issue those checks. Why in the world do 19 individuals have credit cards? I mean, I would like to, if possible, legally, take the credit cards away. I don't even want them buying bubble gum at a gas station. It's like it really should go through the 2 people who are authorized to issue monies to this group at this point.
Let me just clarify, by the way, I think a lot of what you said is very important. Let me just clarify, the auditors did not state that 19 people had credit cards. There were 19 different credit cards over the course of the 5-year period. You know, some expire, some are replaced. So it did not necessarily mean that there were 19 all at one time or 19 individuals that were assigned it, but that is a lot of credit cards, notwithstanding. Moreover, organizations, it's not necessarily inappropriate for an organization to have credit cards for certain kinds of payment. The city has many of them, and they can be used responsibly. But given the fact that there were really no rules that were properly set up for how they were used, we saw what I believe and what our auditors believe to be a tremendous amount of abuse. But to your point, I believe that certainly there is a power that the management trustees can exercise when they get to decide whether to sign off on a check or not, or a check or a payment, as it were, to the credit card company for the credit cards that may be issued.
So it's your understanding, I take it, that if the management trustees going forward say to the labor trustees, henceforth we're not paying for these credit cards unless we prior approve various procedures, that would be consistent with the framework and could stop future payments that were, in their view, inappropriate.
Well, I wouldn't want to opine on the legal aspect of it. That's, again, a question best posed to the city attorney's office as well as to the management trustees. But that could be at least one step in the right direction.
What these two audits do is provide a roadmap. They provide a roadmap for both the labor and management trustees to ensure the maximum effectiveness in how these two trusts are managed. And those kinds of controls are things that are certainly within the authority of either side to request, and consistent with the broader recommendations that we've laid out.
Commissioner Barad.
Thank you. I want to thank you both for very comprehensive audits. And I want to direct my question to the controller. But first I want to say that in reading your audit, I had to go back. I read it, and then I had to go back and reread it because I found it so distasteful. And while there may not be anything of a criminal, that's in quotes, activity, it really was, I think many of the things were unethical, and I think those are the things that some of my colleagues are referring to and that I want to speak to. It seems to be that over the past few years, and what comes out in your audit, an utter contempt for ratepayers and utter contempt for transparency. And I think this commission needs to stand up and say this is the end of that era. Because we're here to protect the ratepayers. That's our first priority. And I think we have to look at these trusts and the future of these trusts in that context. Because this is the public's money. And this pattern of secrecy is just, it's egregious. I wanted to, a specific question to Controller Galperin regarding, you mentioned in here about the IRS and that not everything was reported to the IRS. I'm looking for the specific, you probably know what that is here. The credit cards should have been reported as income. The monthly automobile allowances should have been reported as income. And of course, a gasoline cost. And this, of course, is in addition to many of the people receiving $220,000 in salary. How many people in Los Angeles are making that kind of salary and getting that kind of car allowance?
I agree with absolutely everything that you've just said. And there is much, I think, that we found that is quite offensive. And it may or may not be illegal, but it is absolutely abusive and immoral, as I think you mentioned, and completely unnecessary, and I think a violation of the trust that a trust should have. And by the way, I've said from the very beginning, even if there was not a legal obligation on the part of these trusts to disclose in detail how they spend their money, and I believe there is such a legal requirement that they have, one would have thought that they would be very proud to open up their books to everybody and say, here's how our money is being spent, look at all the wonderful work that we're doing. And yet there was and continues to be, a culture of secrecy and of keeping everything away from anybody to be seen. And even the management trustees previously, and it should be noted, by the way, that our audit period is essentially predating when the current some of the current management trustees are there, including general manager right now. So it's a look back, as it were. But there was just not a culture of opening this up, and it was very much a culture of secrecy, and that has to end. And it's not productive. It's not healthy. As to the issue of IRS, let me turn to Bert Nuring, who's actually a partner in Crow Horwath, who I think can more effectively speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. With regards to the auto allowance, the trust utilize a non-accountable plan for the auto allowance, and so in that case, they would receive administrators would receive, for instance, a $500 per month auto allowance, and then also gas was purchased by credit cards. And so under IRS regulations, both of those amounts should have been included on the employee's W-2s. And so that's the issue with.
All right. So has your department thought of, I'm trying to think of a diplomatic term, of reporting this to the IRS or making them aware of this?
Well, we are looking at what all the available options are for this. I would hope, and I would certainly imagine, especially with this public hearing, that those trusts would be doing it post-haste.
One would think. Okay. The other one is in regard to the nonprofit status. It's my understanding that nonprofits must meet certain kinds of criteria in terms of how much money they spend for operational and salaries, and then what their mission is. Did you look into that ratio and how they were in fact spending that money, and are they really consistent with nonprofit 501c3 organization?
Let me turn to Mr. Nuring to address that as well.
Okay, yes, we did look at the reporting of what I'll call the statement of functional expenses, and in accordance with the IRS rules with regards to the Form 990, as well as general accepted accounting principles, not-for-profits should report information about what is spent on programmatic issues, in particular would be for training as well as for administrative type costs. In the audit report for the fiscal year end June 30th, 2013, the trust began to report a statement of functional expenses. And for 2013, for JSI, they reported 25% as being administrative, and for safety program expenses, about almost 75% was reported for that safety programs. And for JTI, it was about 30% for general administrative expenses and 70% for safety program expenses. There are various industry guidance out there. There isn't anything necessarily hard and fast that would say what percent should be reported. And I think as a part of a recommendation, this is something that the trust should establish, as well as through input from the commissioners as to what level of training related to the expenditure should be undertaken each year.
Did they itemize those areas that you just mentioned?
The itemization took place in auditor's work papers, so we were allowed to view the auditor's work papers as it relates to that. And we've noted within our report areas that we felt that there should be a better way of allocating those costs between general administration and training. And we couldn't, based on the lack of records, we couldn't make a determination as to the reasonableness of those costs. But we're questioning whether there should have been a different method used in making those determinations.
Well, it's the one that I find most interesting is that you say 75% programmatic, because I remember there were two gentlemen who sat where you are several months ago. I believe they were from the trust, and they gave us a historical perspective as why the trusts were created and who created them and so on and so forth, and the rationale. And at the end, I said, okay, I thank you, but what do you do? And they went back over the historical perspective and all that again. I said, but what exactly do you do? And I never got a response. So I still don't know what really they do. What training programs are they doing? And, you know, and DWP is spending $100 million in training. So is this duplicative, or why do we need these other safety programs when we have it right here at DWP? So I'm interested that they're claiming 75% on something that they couldn't even articulate when they were here.
Commissioner, if I may, so if you look at our audit, there is in the midsection between, you know, pages 13 to somewhere around 40, a whole discussion of trying to answer that question, and specifically talking about the 56,000 attendees who have participated in the training, as well as the auditors, and we could certainly have them talk to it, actually witness the curricula. They looked at evaluations that were performed by the attendees to determine how useful it is. What underlying all of this is connecting that to outcomes, and that's really where we recommend there be greater collaboration with the department and establishing a series of frameworks based on best practices around the country, so that there's a direct relationship between the training that they receive and the outcomes that ultimately get implemented in the department itself.
All right, my last question. The controller says that their trusts have accumulated a combined cash balance of $11.3 million. So that means there's over $11 million they haven't spent.
As of July the 1st of 2014.
2014, okay. So that would mean that they could really fund their programs for 3 years without getting any more money.
It should be noted that there are different amounts of reserves that JSI versus JTI has, and that ratio is slightly different for each of those. But as a general matter, I would agree with you.
Okay, so in view of that they have this cash reserve, if we withheld future payments, let's say until the next negotiation of the MOU, and did all this in conferring at the same time with the city attorney to see if we could do that, then to see what our options are. What would your opinion be of that?
Well, again, this is something that you've got to confer with the city attorney on to see what the legal options of the city to do so are. But we raised that very same question. I think you'll probably want to confer with the management trustees on this as well. But certainly it would seem that they would have enough to maintain the current level, at the very least, of activity that they have had.
The current level of activity is, all right, so, I mean, doing what they've been doing.
At the very least. And then if you eliminate some of the perhaps questionable expenditures, then there would seem to be even more available, as it were, to do what I would consider real training and real safety programs.
Okay, so then this commission could then, in view of what you're saying, say that no more payments until we confer with the city attorney and see what our options are.
Well, again, I think you've got to, I will not presume to speak and to provide any kind of legal advice on that, although certainly if there is a way to keep funding them when they're either not spending it or when some of those expenditures are, shall we say, questionable, or even offensive, then that would certainly be an attractive option.
Well, speaking for myself, to give more money when I see how they're spending it, well, actually we don't know with some of the expenditures, but when they are offensive to us, it's a difficult thing. This is very complicated, I think, on various levels. I'm not going to underestimate that, but for me, this is a difficult decision whether to go ahead and continue to fund the trust.
My understanding, because I share your sentiment, is that we're obliged to under the MOU.
Well, that's why
I
I've heard that, and I get that, but I would like to know, based on what we know today, since the controller's audit, a financial audit, I would like to confer with the city attorney specifically what are our options. I've said it before, but it bears saying again. This is a public relations nightmare for us. This is a black mark on all of us. And the way this money is being spent and the contempt for the ratepayers. It's public money. We have a right to know how it's spent. And when I see all the list of what they've done, I mean, it's a tough issue.
Mr. Brown, are you trying to say something?
No, I was just going to say, due to the pending litigation and threatened litigation, I'd be happy to advise the board in closed session and perhaps answer all the questions that the board may have.
That would be very helpful.
I would also like to request that we meet with the city attorney, Mike Fuhrer, and get his read of this as well.
I think that would be highly appropriate.
Thank you.
I agree.
Commissioner Funderburk, you've been unusually quiet.
Patient.
While this was all going on and while my fellow commissioners were fighting this battle, especially wanted to thank Commissioner Fleming for involuntarily or voluntarily, I don't know which is the case, stepping into the fray, and also Controller Galperin, CAO Santana for their yeoman's work. Last year I was called upon to try to make sense of a lot of secrecy and things that were going on in another forum, and I think that in that spirit, as offensive as these reports may seem, I kind of want to look forward with my comments, and my comments relate more to the performance audit. I understand that it was signed on February the 17th. Is that correct?
Yes.
It was signed by Mr. Darcy on February 17th. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it says that the Board of Trustees, including Mr. Darcy, concurs with the recommendations of the CAO performance and operational evaluation. Is that right?
Yes.
What has been done since February 17th to implement this if they've already concurred with it for the past 3 months?
I know that in speaking to the trust, both Ms. Edwards and Mr. DRC, I know they're in the process of developing a implementation plan to fully implement the recommendations in our audit. I have not seen that, but I know that that's what they're working on now.
I think we deserve it right now. I mean, we deserve that. This has been 3 months, and I think we deserve to see it. We deserve to see some outline of it at least. It's already, this is an admission, and my understanding is that the performance audit, most of the things can be done without the MOU change. So I think that Commissioner Broad brings up very good points, but there may be some things that we can't do because of the MOU, and I think that we need to focus on what we can do, assuming that we can't change the MOU. And I concur with the friendly amendment by Commissioner Fleming, but I would like to see if in fact the performance audit recommendations require no amendment to the MOU, and that's what I heard except for maybe 1 or 2, then why are they not being implemented now? And in the report that we get in 30 days, or maybe at the next board meeting, it would be nice to see what the status of those recommendations is, because I've given environmental health and safety seminars myself. I know about NIOSH, I know about ISO 18,000 health and safety, and ISO 14,000 management systems. This started out as a great idea during labor. How many strikes have there been in the past 15 years? It started out as a great idea to develop collaboration and just got off the track. So I'd like to focus on root cause analysis going forward and getting us back on the track, and to the extent that we can implement all of the recommendations that would not require, without some MOU change, that Controller Galperin and CAO Santana have developed, I would say, and that the union and DWP apparently have agreed to and admitted to an agreement 3 months ago. I think we should move post-haste forward positively that way. And yes, it was an embarrassment. Yes, it was bad. But let's look forward and see what we can do about implementing these recommendations as soon as possible.
Well, on that note, I will offer a motion. I move that for the next year, the general manager or her designee report to the Board of Commissioners every 30 days on progress achieved by the management trustees of the two trusts on implementing the recommendations of the audit committees established by the city controller and the chief administrative officer of the city. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
It's passed. Is there further discussion on this item? Again, gentlemen and your teams, thank you very, very much. You've performed a very important service for the city, for the department, for the trusts, ratepayers, and we are very grateful to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we can go through the items that were removed from the consent calendar fairly quickly. The first one is item number 7. Mr. Thunderbird, would you excuse yourself in the context of your recusal? Is there any discussion on item 7? Those in favor?
Aye.
Pass. You can come back, Mr. Thunderbird. Dr. Pickle, your comments on item 9.
On page 5, attachment A, next to the bottom bullet, non-recurring costs would be for fiber construction in the last mile, which would vary depending on location. DWP would charge for this at full cost. Insert the word full.
Is there objection? Okay, that's inserted. Those in favor of item 9 with the word full included?
Aye.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's enacted. Thank you. Commissioner Noonan, item 12.
Okay, what concerns me about this request is a specific word. It says, exercising the extension option will allow LADWP to retain the accumulated knowledge. And I've served on this board long enough to realize that unfortunately we pay large sums of money to partner with entities, and then we're held hostage because the information isn't ours. We're not in control of it. So would you please clarify what you mean by retain? Is the knowledge ours? And also, partnering with entities for 15 years is a long, long time. How do you justify that we should not procure this and see if there's other entities that may be more savvy, more sophisticated in these arenas, and that we're getting, the best cost-effective result for our ratepayers.
Susan Rogani, Water Engineering and Technical Services.
Can't hear you.
Susan Rogani, Water Engineering and Technical Services. Thank you. Basically, in regards to your question in terms of what is retained by ourselves versus our consultants, we will retain the information in terms of what they develop, in terms of planning, the design, and the construction. It's just that when they do the studies and such, they have the knowledge of actually doing the studies and having that information. So it's a matter of someone else trying to come up to speed after someone has already looked at it. So they do share that information for us. I understand the concern switching to why this is such a long-term contract, because we do have the ability potentially to have this to be a 15-year contract. One of the things that we thought about before we went and asked for this long-term contract is because we anticipated using these firms for jobs such as our water quality improvement projects and also our dam analysis and dam safety projects, both of which could take quite a bit of time when you go through the design, actually the planning, the design, and the construction. These are multi-year contracts. And when you look at the list that we have, some of these contracts, like they're working on some of the dams up in the Owens Valley. They're doing the analysis. They'll have to do the planning. Then once we do the planning, we'll have to do the design, and then hopefully some construction. Those may take a decade or more in terms of the time frame. So that's why we wanted to have a consultant that would be familiar with what was done and be able to help us as we went through this process. So that's the reason for the long term.
Thank you. As you know, I respect you immensely, so I appreciate your feedback. But just to clarify, you're stating that from the commencement of an idea to the final stage, that you're looking at 10 years for most of these studies? I find that very difficult to understand. 10 years?
Yes, if not more. If not more.
And why so long? Just educate me.
Well, I'll tell you, for an example, for some of our projects, we've had the river supply conduit, which is now in construction, and that's a project that, believe it or not, had started planning in the 70s. But it's just because you're looking at what needs to be done with this large type of pipeline, what the challenges are in terms of trying to deliver that water, what are the different route studies that you have to take. Also, because it is not a insignificant project, it's a lot of money, and so you're looking at your budget. So sometime by the time you plan the project, look at what it takes to have a route study, then go into the design of the project and actually do the construction. It can take a number of years. That's probably the long-term side of it from the 70s until now. But when you're trying to plan this type of project, it is not unusual. Also for the dam safety projects, those are long-term. And right now I have the head of geotech, which is Anna Perez. He could probably give more details for what it takes to get a dam project actually by the time you analyze it, plan it, design it, and go into construction, because that is also something that DSOD, which is the Division of Dams and Safety, has to approve and has to look at. So it's a long iterative process, or it can be a long iterative process by the time we get to a point where we can decide what we're going to do and the regulatory agency actually buys off on it. So.
And before you start, I just want you to understand where I'm coming from as a commissioner. Unfortunately, we spent a lot of time talking about abuses that have been going on and wasteful spending. Also, at the last board meeting, there was a public speaker who spoke about, why are you doing a pre-study to a study? And so I think, the average person who is paying their bills wants to know if this could be done, if a dam could be done shorter than 10 years, why is that not being done? And I think that people want to have confidence knowing that we're not just agreeing to spend $32 million to URS and $27 million to Kleinfelder West, just for them to do pre-study after pre-study after pre-study. So I think if you could educate me as well as the public, I think that'd be helpful in gaining confidence.
Okay. So, with an overall dam project, it takes quite a bit of time for the overall study. And what you have is the study, which is the investigation part of that. The investigation, you have basic cooperation between the department, you have the consultant, and also the Division of Safety of Dams. What has to happen is you go out in the field and you do various types of investigation techniques, and that could take several years in itself, because there has to be a consensus at the end of the investigation that enough information was gathered. Once that information is put together, then you go through the analysis of the overall structure to determine what type of failure you may have with that structure, what you have to basically you're trying to overall scope a project. What is the concern with that dam? And then once you have that, then you'll be able to go into the overall planning, basically the implementation of trying to come through with trying to figure out the next steps. And then once you do that part, then you go into the design. Now, each one of these things that I'm discussing are years in itself, because you're talking about dam safety, which is the overall concern of failure of the structure and basically loss of life. So and then we look at the dam safety side. They take a very, very conservative approach to that as well. So it's not a very short duration type of, because they're very important decisions that are being made on each step. And it's a hand-in-hand discussion we're having with the Division of Safety Dams up in Sacramento. So it's not, and then you're talking about those are the existing structures, and then we also have now a new structure that we're actually looking at, which is North Hagley Dam, and that in itself is a long-term duration as well. So all of these things, it's just because of just the overall time to understand and move forward, so you don't have the risk and loss of life potential, because that's what we're dealing with these dams. So.
I understand the seriousness of it. But I just don't understand it taking 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I could understand if you told me, given that you have to get state, federal regulation and it takes this amount of time, but just to confirm after confirm, I don't know, maybe I'm ignorant, but even this helpful summary doesn't really explain it to me, but thank you.
Let me interject one thing. So one thing is probably not real clear. It's not as if we set them off on a path and they worked for 10 solid years on this, because there are a lot of starts and stops. Mm-hmm. For instance, at North Hagley, we ran into Mojave ground squirrel and had to do an entire environmental study to find out if we had to move the location of the dam, and working on federal property at the same time. So we're not employing these folks on a day-to-day basis to sit and crunch numbers, because you're right, that would be way overkill to take that long for a project. But it's just the duration of the project and all the different steps. When you add the secret processes and the permitting processes, there's starts and stops, and this is also where having the same consultant on, so that they don't lose the knowledge that they've gained as they go, because it'd be very difficult to turn over this detailed work package to some other consultant. So when we went to the board with this 5 years ago, it was 3-5-year. It's a 15-year program in 5-year packages, and the idea was to get these high-level, a kind of suite of high-level geotechnical consultants on boards that we knew we would have their services available as these projects came up, and they evolved, and they do everything on a task order basis. Matter of fact, when you talked about accountability, and you're right, the question about how do we spend public money, Susan just received an audit last month from our audit folks, and they gave us a complete gold star on our geotech services. They said no comments whatsoever. They said the accounting was perfect.
Okay,
So.
that makes me feel better, so thank you.
Yeah, and we did that specifically because we have these long contracts with a number of people and a lot of tasks, and they said everything was done exactly the way they'd like it done.
Is there a motion? Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved.
May I just say, I love hearing Susan say repeatedly, damn projects, damn projects.
To clarify, there's only an M on the end of that. We do have some of the others as well.
Okay, we are going to move to item 18, eminent domain public hearing proceedings. This is Barron Ridge again. Barron Ridge Renewables Transmission Project public hearing and adoption of resolution of necessity authorizing commencement of eminent domain proceedings to acquire 46 parcels of real property in the vicinity northeast of Mojave and south of the Barron Ridge switching station in Kern County, south to the area west of Lancaster, down to the Los Angeles County line, and south to the vicinity of the California Aqueduct in Los Angeles County, California. First, we will have a staff presentation, and then there will be public testimony. I think we have one card. Is that correct? Two cards. Okay. So first, staff presentation.
Thank you. My name is John Dennis. I'm the Director of Power System Planning and Development. As part of the department's goals to increase our renewable energy and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the department saw the need to increase the capacity of the existing transmission line to the Mojave area. And by expanding this transmission line, the department can bring in more renewable energy from such sources as geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar power. This package before you today, it's the final package, number 4 of 4 total, brought for your action for the acquisition of 46 parcels in the Kern and Los Angeles counties in order to build the 61-mile-long Barren Ridge Renewable Transmission Line. This action is consistent with your approval of the jointly filed environmental impact report back in September of 2012, which defined the path of this project. And associated with this project was the need to acquire 444 parcels. This acquisition will not impact any existing buildings. The properties are vacant, and they do not include or contain any buildings or occupied structures. As well, we have a fair process that's been established in this project. We've allowed an appraisal of each parcel by certified appraisers. The landowners were able to provide supplemental comps information for those parcels as we considered the acquisition. And thirdly, if a disagreement still existed at that time, then the owners were given the opportunity to secure a separate appraisal with the department's offer to reimburse them for that expense of the appraisal. City Attorney's Office, Tim Chung, will briefly describe the legal process on this project.
Good afternoon. As this board is aware and is familiar with, we are here again to request that the board adopt a resolution making the statutory and environmental findings to allow the legal counsel to initiate the eminent domain proceedings to acquire the properties to keep this project on schedule. The findings that you are being asked to make must be based on the testimony and evidence that are presented at the hearing, as well as the information that's contained in the board letter and the letters that were mailed to the board and presented to the board prior to this meeting. The value of the properties are not a subject of this hearing. The LADPP will continue to negotiate the values with the property owners, but if that negotiation is not successful, then the proposed eminent domain proceedings that we are requesting that you adopt the findings for will help determine that process through the legal process. The affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board will be needed to adopt the resolution, and once your board adopts the resolution, it will be presented to the City Council, which must also adopt the resolution before we can commence legal proceedings. Because of the need to expedite the construction of the project, the authorization also includes seeking prejudgment possession of the properties through the court process. Thank you.
Do you have more?
I'm done. Yeah.
Okay.
Take the public comment.
Barbara, we have 2 speaker cards, I believe. So this will be public comment.
Okay, the first speaker is Carla Blanc.
Good morning, or good afternoon at this point. My name is Carla Blanc. And,
Can you speak into the mic?
Yes.
Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I want to make sure that anybody listening can hear you outside as well. So.
Okay. My name is Carla Blanc. I'm an attorney at Southern California Edison Company, and we are here to urge the Commission to not adopt this resolution yet, to put this over for 60 to 90 days. Southern California Edison owns in fee one of the parcels that's at issue that is sought to be condemned. Edison has high voltage transmission lines which transport electricity to tens of thousands of California customers on that parcel. It's my understanding we have been in contact with people at the Department of Water and Power regarding whether there is a possibility of co-use of the property, but at this time we don't think that we're not satisfied that our concerns for operational safety have been addressed. Specifically, there's regulations and good engineering practices regarding clearances and access for Edison for its facilities. And until Edison has had sufficient time to review the plans and make sure that those issues are being addressed, we ask that the resolution of necessity not be adopted at this time. We have submitted a letter dated April 28th, 2015, which we hope will be considered before a resolution of necessity is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Alfredo Woods.
Good morning. My name is Alfredo Woods. I'm slightly livid because I'm here supporting a friend, and I come to find out that my property is also along that line, and I never received anything. So I'm glad that I'm here. This gentleman just spoke a little while ago, and he said that no buildings are being impacted, and therefore we're trying to move forward. People do not want to build in that area because they don't know what you guys are going to do. So therefore, they're afraid of eminent domain, so people do not want to build in that area. However, there are a lot of solar farms in that area. A lot. Number two, well, first of all, I am for this project. Let's get that straight. I'm absolutely for the project. I believe that the project is for the greater good of the public. However, I think that the path that you're taking is not in the greater good of the public. I think that we can go down a different route that is less intrusive. I think that the route that you're taking is prime development ready land. It's not limited or restricted land. Prime development ready land. In fact, one of the biggest solar farms in the world is right along that path. It's going right through it. So there are other paths that you can take that are less intrusive. The zoning down that path is A2, which has that zoning has been approved for solar. And right now I believe solar is extremely needed for California. In fact, we have a mandate that in 5 years we need to meet 33%. 15 years, 50%. So solar is great, and I believe that this project is a great project, but it's just going down the wrong path, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, I never got noticed. The property above mine was on here. I came here today and I perused the package, wondering how far this was going down, because my property is on E. And
can you wrap up your remarks, please?
Excuse me?
Can you wrap up your remarks, please?
Absolutely. So let me just, once again, number one, I believe that this path is extremely intrusive to prime development ready land. I believe that people do not want to build buildings, but there are lots of solar farms in that area, including the world's largest solar farm that is going right through it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I do have one more card.
Oh, okay.
It's from David L., and I cannot read the last name. Price? Okay, thank you.
What?
One's 15 minutes.
To be heard properly, I'll need about 15 minutes.
That's not going to work.
Okay. Summarize.
Okay.
We'll summarize. Okay, my name is David Price. I'm one of the landowners here. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering, and I do own land in the area right here. I'm going to summarize my statements, but understand that my summarized statements are not really
I'm actually shorting my whole statement that I want to make here. So.
And you can submit a written statement in support of your summary statement.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. There are 3 key factors why eminent domain should not be granted by the should not be granted to the Barron Ridge program as currently proposed. Number 1, the project creates the highest possible private injury by taking away prime development-ready land. Second, the Barron Ridge program does not follow industry best practices of placing large transmission lines in development-restricted areas. I had charts to show that. Third, the Barron Ridge program does not take into account the highest and best use of the land, resulting in the greatest harm, both financially and environmentally, to the public, the neighboring cities, the county, and even the state. Furthermore, the current path selected by the Barron Ridge program is not necessary, and the properties sought to be acquired are not necessary. The good news is there are alternatives available. I urge you to consider the facts. They'll be written and they'll be here also too. The facts and deny the current path of the Barron Ridge program the power of eminent domain. And I will give a I will forward a written summary here. So.
Thank you.
Do you want me to show this? This is a pictorial right here of best practices right here. Very good best practices right here. As you can see, this whole area right in here, transmission lines right here, are not affecting any development or any developments that are going on right here. Yeah, let's see. This is an example. This is an example of poor planning, right here. In the Barron Ridge program, as it stands right now, because we're going to have development right here. You're going to replace all these houses right here with private developments that are going on, solar farms, and all this kind of all those kind of ventures that can potentially take place here. I know that's my plan to build a solar farm on my property.
Okay, your time is up, sir.
Okay. We will forward the rest of these documents to the council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Well, that will be the close of public testimony. I would appreciate it if staff could respond to the points that have been made by the witnesses.
If I may, just for a minute, with respect to the comments by Southern California Edison, the department is trying to negotiate with Edison to have a compatible or joint use in that area, and but in the unlikely event that the department and Edison are not able to reach an agreement, there is a process through the eminent domain law for the court to determine a compatible use. And in the resolutions that we're asking that the board to adopt now, it does have that provision that requests that we make a finding that we can have a compatible use. And if the parties cannot independently agree to it outside of court, then we would request that the court make that determination. And given the time frame for the project, we would request that that property not be delayed at this point.
So am I to understand correctly that, at least with regard to Edison, and I wonder about with the other witnesses as well, if the department and others who are unhappy with our plans can't agree, there's ultimately a judicial resolution of these differences?
There is, but with respect to Edison, the issue there is that there are two public uses. Edison is a public utility, we're a municipal utility, and we both serve the public. And so with respect to Edison, we can try to work and compromise on a compatible use, and if we can't do that, we will request that the court do that. With respect to the route, we believe that the evidence in the board letter, as well as the environmental document that was adopted 2 years ago, did select this route as the route that created the least impacts. So, John may want to add to that, but
I think with regards to our working with Southern California Edison, we really appreciate a healthy working relationship. Our transmission lines do cross in various locations at numerous times, and so we do work together on that. And so that is our greatest interest, to go ahead and pursue that so we have a healthy crossing at this point that was discussed by Ms. Blank.
And what about the others?
And the others, again, as even today, as some of those questions came up as far as the opportunity for negotiating a final price with regards to that. Those are some things that we have opportunity with our real estate, our appraisal folks as well. But as far as the alignment is concerned, that was adopted and established back in September of 2012. And that process was fully vetted for quite some period of time as we worked with the communities and the landowners.
What about the issue that the one gentleman didn't receive notice?
I'm not aware of that particular parcel.
Well, his parcel is not listed, so we will have to look into that. But you're not taking action on his parcel, but we will have to investigate that. If he did not, the assumption would be that his property is not in the alignment that we're seeking to build. But if that's not the case, we will correct it.
Other questions? Other comments? Is there a motion? Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You have 4 votes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move to item 20A, Power System Monthly Report.
It's in your binder, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on it.
Any questions? Eloquent, thank you. 20A2, Renewable Portfolio Standard RPS Projects.
A similar response that is in your packet, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
Equally eloquent, thank you. 20B1, Quarterly Status Report on Water Quality Regulatory Compliance Projects, third quarter for January 1 to March 31.
Same as Mr. Wright. If you have any questions, we're ready to report.
Not quite as eloquent.
I thought not.
20B2, One Water LA 2040 Plan Vision, Objectives, and Guiding Principles.
This we have a presentation, brief presentation for the board. This is to update you on the One Water effort. It's an effort that's been going on for a number of years in the city, and it's actually an effort that's you see going on nationally and to some extent worldwide in recognition that all the water that we have is connected in one way or another, and whether we're using it now or getting it up north or creating new water down here or trying to save local sources, that we need to really look at how we handle every drop of water, both from the clean water side, wastewater side, stormwater side, and to make the best use of all that water. And part of this whole effort is to make sure that all the city and other agencies such as County Department of Public Works are all engaged together on this effort, so that we're not leaving gaps between our levels of areas of responsibility, so that we make sure that we're not missing anything and missing any opportunities where we can leverage the public monies that we have to do the greatest good. So first I'd like to call up someone who's been very involved with probably more aspects of the water than most people, and that's David Nahai. He's of course our former general manager and a former commission president, and also the former chair of the LA Regional Water Quality Control Board, and he's been very involved with the One Water group. So I'd like to ask him to kick this off, and then we'll have a report between our staff and LA Sanitation staff.
Great. This is a person who needs no introduction.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm grateful. Let me just start off by expressing my appreciation as a citizen of Los Angeles for the work that all of you do around the Horseshoe. Having sat in your chair, President Levine, and yours, Commissioner van der Burg, and yours, General Manager Edwards, I can tell you I have a deep appreciation for the service that you provide to the city. So thank you. Talking about One Water LA, I think I've got maybe 5 minutes to talk about it, and this is mostly about the work of the advisory group that was convened in order to provide some input to this process. And in your packets, you'll see that One Water LA is basically carrying on the work that was, or the plan that was expressed in the 2006 Integrated Water Resources Plan, which in turn was followed by the Water Supply Plan of 2008. And both those plans, even back, in 2006 and 2008, recognized that we have to have a new relationship with water in this city, that we cannot continue to be dependent for 90% of our water from imports from outside the city. And so that we had to move. It was clear even back then to local water resources, more conservation, wastewater recycling, stormwater capture, remediating the San Fernando Valley aquifer, underground storage, infrastructure repair and new building standards, and these kinds of approaches to at least provide us with some measure of independence from water imports. And this is really what the One Water Plan attempts to do. It not only builds on those approaches, but it expands them. So you will find discussion of the energy-water nexus and watershed health and all of these different programs that need to be followed in order to secure our water future. So, I've been very interested in what your staff and the staff at LA San, the Bureau of Sanitation, have been doing during all of these years, and they really should be commended for a lot of work that has happened, a lot of it under the radar, a lot of it without the support of rate increases to provide the investment for the work that they need to do. So when this possibility of serving on this advisory board came up, I was very happy to do it. And we've had, I think, 4 meetings. The meetings have been, to say the least, spirited, and there have been many disagreements, but they've been very civil, very cordial. And I believe that the plan that has been provided to you is truly a result of consensus. I want to name my fellow advisory group members. Melanie Winter, Jack Humphreybille, Veronica Padilla, Dr. Ken Murray, Alexander Robinson, Mike O'Gara, and Carolyn Casavan were the other members of the advisory group. So what you have is basically the result of their input, the result of many stakeholder meetings, the result of many meetings between city officials. And I do want to finish off by just saying one thing about cost, because it's easy to look at this plan and think that this is some kind of a wish list, and everybody will look at it and say, well, yes, of course, we want to do these things. And it's easy to conclude, perhaps, that the advisory group and the stakeholders and the city executives and officials that have been involved didn't really pay attention to the cost. And that is just not true at all. With respect to every single item that is on this list, these 7 overarching objectives, we asked what the cost would be and whether this would be affordable. But I'd like to think that we also went beyond the issue of just what the cost would be, to ask whether this would be a worthwhile investment and what the value would be for the future of the city. And we also asked, and you'll find that as one of the points in there, what the cost would be of not acting, of not moving towards a new water future, of not making the necessary investments. And I'll leave you with, of course, the example of the San Fernando Valley aquifer, where we now hear that in order to remediate that, in order to restore this vanishing, precious, priceless resource, we're going to have to spend about $1 billion to do that, right? Had it not been for the thoughtless practices of our father's generation and our grandfather's generation, this $1 billion cost would not have been foisted on us today. Now, we can absolve past generations of blame. We can say that they didn't know better or that there were exigent circumstances. But we will have no such excuse when it comes to our children and our grandchildren. And if we don't make these investments today, we're going to foist upon their shoulders a much more expensive and painful burden in the future. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, David, very much. I just want to say you are an exemplar of public service yourself, and it's in your blood. You can't help yourself, and we're all the better for it.
Thank you. That's very
I don't know if any of my colleagues have any questions they want to ask you, or any other praise they want to heap on you.
Well, praise is always welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, and to be perfectly honest, I have not had the chance to review this in detail, but I promise I will this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. To help with that, we'll have a very brief presentation by Dave Pettyjohn and Doug Walters, who's here from LA Sanitation. And tomorrow, the Public Works Board will be receiving the same information, since we are there's many partners in this, but we are certainly the 2 driving forces.
Gentlemen?
Yes, we'll try to be as brief as David was, but it'll be a challenge. So good afternoon, President Levine, Commissioners. I'm David Pettyjohn. I'm the Director of Water Resources here. And with me today is Mr. Doug Walters. Doug is the Assistant Division Manager for LA Sanitation's Wastewater Engineering Services Division, and he serves as the Project Director for the One Water LA plan. He's also been Project Director for the past 9 years on its precursor, the city's Water Integrated Resources Plan. But before I get started, I do want to say thank you and acknowledge our appreciation for the involvement and commitment of our past General Manager, David Nahai. David has been consistently involved in a variety of stakeholder efforts on LA DWP programs, including the One Water LA plan, and we really appreciate his time and his valuable insights. For decades, the city's been facing water management challenges, including aging water and wastewater facilities and infrastructure, increasingly stringent regulatory requirements, environmental needs, water supply restrictions, and a growing dependence upon imported water. And more recently, the issues and challenges of climate change and drought. So the fact that all these challenges and the areas of responsibility they impact are shared by more than one city department established the need to have a citywide integrated strategy for water. And in recognition of this fact, back in 2006, the city developed its Water Integrated Resources Plan, which is now evolving into the city's One Water LA plan. So in order to understand the One Water LA plan, it's instructive to understand some background on the city's original Water IRP, which is the foundation we're building the One Water LA plan on. So the Water IRP was adopted back by the city in 2006, and it had a planning horizon through 2020. In it, it's a focus on integrated facilities planning for water, for wastewater, and for runoff management programs primarily. The result of that city IRP was quite a bit of savings in project deferment, and we were able to defer projects and save the city about $545 million in construction costs. And I just want to mention a few of the projects to give you a flavor of what we were able to avoid. So the Hyperion solids handling and truck loading facility was deferred, Glendale Burbank Interceptor Sewer, the Northeast Interceptor Sewer, the wastewater and recycled water storage at LA Glendale wastewater treatment plant, and also the wastewater storage at the Donald C. Tillman wastewater treatment plant. So One Water LA builds on all of this success. This gives you an idea of what the vision for the original city IRP was with its 2020 look ahead, but we're expanding that now with a vision to look forward to 2040 and the update and address the issues that have emerged since the IRP was originally developed, and that's the plan looking forward for One Water. So you have before you the Guiding Principles report that was dated yesterday, May 4th, 2015. And it contains the vision, objectives, and guiding principles for the One Water plan. And this slide essentially gives you the vision. So the One Water LA, it's a collective approach to developing an integrated framework for resources and water facilities. And those facilities include wastewater, stormwater, and recycled water. And of course, we want to do all that in an environmentally, economically, and socially beneficial manner. It's important to understand that we didn't develop this vision in a vacuum. This vision was drafted with the input of numerous stakeholders and other city departments, and I want to give you an idea of just how many. So here you see the list of 13 other city departments that are participating in the One Water LA plan, along with the regional agencies in black below that are also participating in the process. In addition to those, there are numerous stakeholders, NGOs, and stakeholder groups that have been involved. And in the back of your Guiding Principles report, you'll see a listing of 311 stakeholders who are involved, and there are about 60 who are extremely actively involved. And then beyond that, we have the advisory group, and David Nahai mentioned the people who are involved in that. And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to Doug, and he's going to talk to you about the activities to date and the next steps for One Water.
Thank you, David. It's certainly a privilege to be here from the Bureau of Sanitation, working alongside my colleagues here at Department of Water and Power on this very historic effort that's taken place over really many years, starting with the Integrated Resources Plan. The three pillars of this effort are inclusion, innovation, and integration. And as David just showed you, of all those city departments working together, it's quite collaborative, quite time-consuming, but when you realize the value of the work, the need, the breadth, the scope of how water touches all of our lives, it's essential that we continue to break down these silos, to work together, to share on our common objectives. We're just wrapping up the first phase of this planning effort. It's expected to be completed at the end of June. We held three stakeholder workshops that are outlined in the report. It was very critical to bring in all these folks from different backgrounds, businesses, environmental organizations, neighborhood councils, council offices, people who believe in social justice, et cetera, ratepayer advocate folks. Clearly, we're well represented there. We got down into some of the nitty-gritty. We had breakout sessions that covered water supply reliability, watershed health, climate change mitigation. That was something that we didn't really talk about when we first started the IRP back in 1999. How do we adapt to that? And of course, as importantly, the economic and financial stability of all of our precious resources and the facilities that deliver clean water and treat water. We've also held steering committee meetings. These are with all these 12 other department folks with representatives there, as well as the other 7 or 8 regional agencies that touch water, most of them within the city of Los Angeles, and some of them extend beyond as the watersheds do not obey political jurisdictions. David Nahai was active on the advisory groups. We've had 4 of those meetings to date. They're our sounding board. We really trust and respect all the opinions and insight that come from them, and helps guide us in our process as we manage this effort. So currently we're developing ongoing activities that are concurrent to find out where these opportunities for integration are, for additional collaboration, identifying some low-hanging fruit. When we talk about this plan extending out to 2040, there's still some things that we can get done within a few months period of time, not just the 10, the 20 years that some of the longer-range, large magnitude capital improvement projects will take. So identifying all of those is part of our collaborative effort here. We're continuing to engage stakeholders. We've got over 300, as Dave mentioned, over 200 organizations. During that first phase of the IRP, all those folks, we summed them all up, represented over 1.5 million Angelenos. Quite historic, quite incredible. I think we can actually exceed that this time around, because all those folks are still on board. They haven't left. They're anxiously staying in tune with us, giving us their insight. We just released our website yesterday, as well as this report, and that's LA City it's onewaterla.org. Excuse me, I was giving you the beta version. Onewaterla.org. So people now have a much easier way to find out what's going on rather than attending a workshop, because our meetings will only hold 100 people, and we have to find a larger venue, maybe the Hollywood Bowl perhaps, although it'd probably be very hard to hear each other there. The next steps, this is my last slide, is continuing the discussions with the city departments, the regional agencies, continuing to identify various low-hanging fruit that are out there. Some of these things, just to give you a few examples, are drought-tolerant plants, not just for residents, but also commercial industries, city facilities as well can benefit a lot from this. Why can't we use recycled water for making concrete? LAX, LAWA, other departments make a lot of concrete, build a lot of buildings. So we're working with the ASTM folks on the standards to try to break through that. There's a huge effort called Recode Los Angeles. The planning department is undertaking, rewriting the planning code that hasn't been touched since about 1947. We're one of the oldest planning codes in the country, I think next to Cleveland, I believe. How do we recognize more sustainable practices and get those into the code so businesses and homeowners can take advantage of things like permeable pavement and low-impact best management practices. And finally, just more low-impact development projects, period, through grant writing, criteria, et cetera. We anticipate this starting the second phase in July. We just released the scope of work last Thursday. to hire a consultant to help us with this magnanimous effort. As you can imagine, a lot of parallel tracks will be ongoing, dealing with the water reliability, the wastewater component, as well as the watershed, health of the watersheds. In closing, One Water will empower all of us to have a greater impact, enable us, to have new working relationships, to utilize water, regardless of what source it currently is in, to maintain our facilities and provide a sustainable life for all of us who live and work in this city. Thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you both for your leadership on this. Is obviously of extraordinary importance, and what you're doing is really important. We appreciate it. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I had a quick question on the costs associated with this, and I would just say, I know that you're factoring that in, but the one of the things that I have not seen is the externalities and benefits associated with One Water that are difficult to capture from an economic standpoint on a present basis, but that have very long-term positive benefits. Maybe, as you develop through this process, if that can be looked at, some way of monetizing the longer-term benefits that are difficult to capture, because it's easy to say that, rerouting and all this other stuff costs, when you compare apples to apples per acre foot, but looking at externalities, I think, is one of the things that should be looked at if this is going to be such a long-term vision.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Marty, more?
No, sir. Unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much.
I do have a speaker card for this one.
Oh, there's a speaker card? Okay.
Yes.
We should call the speaker.
Jack Humperville.
I'm Jack Humperville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. I was also on the One Water Advisory Board. I must say I don't necessarily agree with all the guiding principles. First of all, I think it's, just to read through it is very, very difficult. It's written for consultants, by consultants, where ordinary slobs just don't have a clue of what's going on. Secondly is with regards to financials. There's no really provisions in here to analyze the financial impact. Thirdly is, during all these meetings, I have asked a number of questions about how much this is going to cost, and I have not gotten any answers. For example, you take stormwater capture. That was a $40 billion project for the county. The city estimated it was going to cost them $8 to $10 billion, but those numbers weren't discussed, nor was anything discussed about where all the dough is going to come from. My concern is benefits-based costing, and that I think that one of the problems I have here is I think they're going to stick it to the ratepayers. That we're going to pay the DWP ratepayers are going to pay a disproportionate amount of this cost, and that the One Water system will not go or will not be approved will not go to the voters for their approval, which will require what two-thirds vote, or the Prop 218 and all those various things. So again, my real concern is that the ratepayers are going to get stuck with a disproportionate amount of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
President?
Yes.
I think given our latest public speaker and Commissioner Funderburk's questions as well, I would request that we do have some financial information relating to this program by our next board meeting.
General Manager, can that be done?
I think that part of the challenge has been the quantification of the externalities that Bill certainly mentioned, and getting the group to agree on any kind of framework for evaluation. That having been said, staff will pull together what we have in terms of the economics and attempt to do a deeper dive.
And by the same token, if the next board meeting isn't feasible, perhaps within the next couple of months, because I think it is important to understand the long-term investment, as you said, and the immediate investment that we would be making.
Good.
Thank you.
It will be done soon. We have two more items. I think we should just go through them. Management report A, solar incentive program, followed by B, final budget. So 21A, Solar Incentive Program.
Staff is coming up. We'll have Brian Koch and Jason Rondu giving an update on it.
This was a Thunderbird request, if I recall correctly.
Hello, my name is Brian Koch. I'm the Assistant Division Head for Planning and Development. We're going to go quickly through some slides here and hopefully answer the questions that were raised. This is one of 4 programs, the Solar Incentive Program. We're going to just focus on the solar incentive questions that were raised and provide a status update and progress improvements recently. The SIP program has over 15,000 customer-owned systems at this time, almost 130 megawatts of capacity. And what led to some of these questions was in the last 6 months, we've had about 15% of our total installs. So there's been a lot of activity in the last few months, and that's really what's led to some of the questions and the need for process improvements and more staffing. So you have both residential involvement here, you have commercial incentives, you also have nonprofit participation. We have given out about $8 million in incentives to nonprofits, approximately 80 different sites. We have $3 million pending for nonprofits. There's a different rate for nonprofits because of the tax incentives that differ from commercial and or residential. We also have an affordable housing component in the program. So there's been a lot of different aspects of our ratepayers that have taken advantage of solar incentives over the many years this has been going on. The program will last probably another 2 years from the funding that we have left in the solar incentive program. The main chart, we have this and another chart that we'd like to hit. This is the response time and inspection times for the solar incentive and installation process over the last effectively 16 months. As you see, the times for inspection are defined here. So first you have a reservation, then you have an inspection process, and then ultimately you have a payment process. The key thing for our customers is after they make a reservation request, they want to see their solar turned on as quickly as possible, which is the blue and the 2 levels of green in there. Those times have been coming down substantially, and even over the last 6 months when we've been seeing more installation requests, those numbers are still down. The payment period hasn't changed a lot, but that's not where our customers have concerns. It's really just getting the solar systems turned on. So this is our monthly service level chart that we provide every month. A version of this you see in the board reports and the RPS policy every month. The other key metric for us is the response time on the customer lines. This is in days on the bar chart, and the call volume is the blue line. So call volume has gone up and down over the very many months of this. In the last month, we are showing a call response time about a day and a day 0.3, which is very close to our 24-hour target for calls back. This incentive line replies both to the solar incentive program as well as the EV line. So they handle these 2 types of calls. So we get a lot of support from customer service, energy solutions, efficiency solutions, and various other parts of the department. So those were our main 2 charts showing the progress we've made. Specifically, it's about processing times. It's about better inspection, shorter periods of time to get the inspections done, along with the meter set to actually do the billing. And then it's communications. It's improving our relationships with both the solar installers, of which, that's our key industry communication level, plus obviously the owners of the buildings or the owners of the structures themselves. So it's a matter of communication. It's a matter of who's involved in the program. Our staffing update, which was one of the key concerns, we have added staff over the last month or so. We've increased staff by about 40% in our area, which is actually the area that does most of the solar planning and the support for the call center. We've increased staffing by 40%, and in the next few months it'll be another doubling of that. So it's a total of almost 175% as you add it all up. This is about 15 people or so just in our area. But this affects service planning, which is in engineering. They do new business as well as solar, so there's a large amount of folks that are being added there. The economy is growing. We're just one part of that growing economy for our solar work. In the transmission and distribution area, that is basically where they do the documentation and installation of the meters. There's more folks coming there as well. Our intent with all these staffing changes is to further bring down our response times, our waiting call center times, talking more to the customer, providing more fact sheets, providing better information for them, relationships with the contractors so that the owners understand what the contractors are going to be doing for them, which is sometimes where there's some concerns, and basically better communication overall. So this was, I did this really fast because I know you've been here a long time, so we went through it quickly, but this is the highlights of the program changes, and if you have any questions specifically, we can go through those.
Thank you. Commissioner Thunderbird?
Commissioner Broad, did you have questions? Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Yes, go.
This graph, solar incentive program, this is residential? Which one?
That's call center time. So that's when someone calls in, leaves a message, how quickly do we get back to them?
Okay, so why the volume, the way this is, the peak blue line, what do you attribute to that, the increase in that blue line?
Well, it's related to the amount of applications received to some degree,
Okay.
but maybe just...
Yeah, there's a variety of factors. Last fall, we did some restructuring of our inspection crews to enable us to handle a larger volume and be able to respond to changes in volume. And so we had a little bit of a brief rough patch, and I think that probably attributed to it, but it also has a lot to do with application levels as well. If we see a spike, we'll see a spike in calls.
Okay. What about the hotline? I know we talked about that here several months ago.
That is effectively the hotline.
This is the hotline? Okay. So that people, they're getting through much...
They're getting through much quicker. They're getting, again, they leave the
Yeah.
message. Sometimes they even get live responses at certain
Wow.
times of the week. So we take credit for that.
Yeah, because I remember before they were being told they were going to call them back like with 48 hours.
Yeah, and it's our 24-hour target, and again, we're meeting that typically now.
Okay, and going back to what you said, I'm trying to find it here. The nonprofit, that was early on. There it is. Are the schools included in that, LAUSD?
Not, in most cases, no.
So no, they do have a rate that is paid very similar to the nonprofit rate. And again, the intent is to put them on par with commercial entities that can take advantage of the federal tax incentives. So the incentive rate is about double for schools and for nonprofits.
So do you have someone who's really actively trying to get participation from LAUSD in their schools?
Yes, we do. But
yes, we've got their account manager that works directly with them in coordination with my group as well. That helps make sure and shepherd their projects through. They've submitted upwards of 40 projects to date. They've been a very long-time participant in the program. They've got a substantial amount of projects and incentive dollars dedicated to LAUSD.
So there is a significant outreach to schools.
I would say that it's for several years that they've been participating. They still have projects in, and we've got very consistent and clear communication with them, and we make sure that they're up to date on program requirements, incentive levels, and the status of their ongoing projects.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave and Marcy, for the comprehensive briefing that about issues that I brought up. I really appreciate it. I looked at it, and two somewhat disparate issues. One, the calls that I had been getting and had been hearing at commission meetings about our response times on commercial solar. I see we have goals. Going back to that graph that Commissioner Broad brought up, have we benchmarked that against other public utilities to find out where we stand in terms of our response with this?
I think a number of programs are very different in structure, and our biggest constraint continues to be having exams, hiring people, and the funding stream to do that. That's probably the largest barrier we have to increasing our service presentations. And we're hopeful. What did you say the time frame was? We were going to bring on more additional staff?
In the next few months, we have quite a number of staff allocated, starting in June, and we have some already.
I think subsequent to that, when you have adequate staffing, making sure we do the work to benchmark against others in terms of their response time. Granted, on the incentive portion, we are not the only group that's in that loop, and so we can't control that time frame, but the initial time frames we certainly can.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see that maybe in a few months, if that's possible.
Okay.
And as to going back to the nonprofit slide, what I was interested in was
which one?
Not just the nonprofit roofs. And by the way, are those nonprofits that are owned by the nonprofits themselves, or are they nonprofits leasing from real estate developers?
So these are nonprofit entities that own their system.
No, but do they own the building?
It is very common. I think in some circumstances they have rights to that building for a long duration. So they have to demonstrate that they have control over that building for 20 years. So in the vast majority of instances, they own the building. In some rare, they don't.
So that was interesting that you brought up on the incentive program. That was good information. But what I'm interested in is the fit. I'd like to know what if we're giving direction to our contractors and the integrators that they need to be out in the hood, out in these areas where the money that's going to go to buildings that are owned or long-term leased by the NGOs, nonprofits, will not go into the developers or real estate owners' pocket, but it will go back into the neighborhood, because that's where the delta will go, the difference in the cost that we're paying for those fit roofs. So that's what I'm interested in. If you could, I don't know if that's something that you can give direction to the contractors and integrators on. I know there have been other obstacles with that program. There have been some successes, but I'd like to be more aggressive about identifying those organizations and reaching out. And it doesn't need to be reported back in the next month. I would just say if it's May, maybe by August. If you could let me know, I'd like to know the top 50 NGO and nonprofit roofs that might be fit capable.
Okay, we've already done some of those numbers for you, but we'll get you a further report and encourage that participation throughout further outreach.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
One comment?
Yes.
And one question.
Yes.
The comment is for commercial and NGOs, the only choice is not fit. There's also net metering for commercial customers in ways that use the incentives. The investor-owned utilities in the state have had much better success with their net metering programs for commercial customers than we've had. We're roughly comparable in the residential sector, but we're behind in the commercial sector. So we should look at the commercial rates for possible adders similar to the investor-owned utilities. And then one question. The integration of batteries with solar systems have been in the news lately. What plans do you have for looking at and anticipating the growth of battery applications linked to solar facilities.
We're aware of the various press releases on batteries. In our division, there is a group looking at battery, both under the grid integration piece as well as the technology. I'm sure it will be coming to the industry, and we're doing everything we can to understand both the economic drivers of that and the technology. Some of those studies will be done later this year, and we'll have a better idea of what the marketplace will look like.
We currently, right now, have a battery storage plan with specific projects intended to test the suitability in varying aspects of our grid, and I think that might be worth a presentation at a later date if we could add that to the slate.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our final open session item is the final budget for fiscal year 15-16, Water and Power Revenue Fund to City Council.
Good afternoon, President Levine and Honorable Commissioners. We're here before you today to go through, we'll take you through the final budget presentation for the coming year, fiscal year 15-16. Just to give you a heads up, we will be coming back to your board the second meeting this month for the final approval of the budget itself and transmission of all those documents to the City Council and the Mayor. So with that, we'll get started. Just a simple overview of the items we're going to cover. The Mayor's priority outcome areas, a recap and the development status for the budget, some of the changes as we look from the preliminary budget to the final budget, key expenditure plans and recommended budgets for our Power Revenue Fund and Water Revenue Fund, summary of the key programs, some accomplishments and highlights by Power and Water, and I'll be joined with Marty Adams and David Wright providing valuable input on some of those slides as well. Capital O&M expenditure trends, staffing, our APR authorized position resolution for the department and funding, some next steps, and then of course we have an appendix for further information. So moving on to the Mayor's priority outcome areas. As you know, the Mayor Mayor Garcetti has 5 priority outcome areas. All the city departments were asked to develop their budget in the context of these 5 priority outcome areas and helping to fulfill those for our residents and businesses in the city. The foremost of that is providing excellent service and competitive rates for customers, really continuing investment in critical infrastructure, transitioning to sustainable water and energy supplies. These are how our work in the Department of Water and Power relate to the Mayor's priority outcome areas. Increasing that system reliability for our customers, compliance with all the legal and regulatory mandates, and then leveraging our spend to help create and foster and support jobs in the local economy. What we've done through this budget process is align our budgetary goals and spending as well as benchmarking and performance metrics to really further the Mayor's priority outcome areas. Here's a brief recap of the budget. Again, we came to this board on March 17th for approval of the preliminary budget, transmitting that to the council. And that information also went to the CAO and the CLA and the Mayor Advocate's Office. The final proposed budget presented today, and will come back, as I said, on May 19th for the final approval, reflects proposed changes from the prelim budget. And we have our next slide. We now have to comply with Charter Section 511B. This is a standard the information. We provide the receipts and appropriation documents to the city to comply with the formatting of the budget that they prepare on the city side. It's a little different from how we look at our own budgetary materials, but it does comply with the city, and it's reflected in their proposed budget and their adopted budget books. O&M, capital expenditures, fuel and purchase power, and financing activities. Those are all consolidated in the information that we submit to the city and the Mayor and the City Council. Here's a highlight of some of the changes we've seen from the prelim budget to the final budget. The Water Revenue Fund, Capital and O&M costs have increased by $123 million and $8.9 million, respectively. That's primarily driven by requirements for Owens Valley, including the master planning project and phases 9 and 10. And I know that Marty will be able to talk more about that too later. We've also seen the change in the purchased water assumptions. When we came to you back in the March prelim, we were still using the information that assumed that normalized water year. Based on the information we received through April, we know now that we have a very, very low snowpack, and this does increase the amount that will be required for purchased water as we look towards the next fiscal year. We came to you in March, the estimate was the 209, and this estimate now reflects 271. For the Power Revenue Fund, the capital and O&M budgets have decreased by about $5.6 million and $28.7 million, respectively, primarily attributed to Barron Ridge Transmission and some changes we've seen, as well as Navajo Generation O&M, and then increased funding for the customer contact centers, specifically additional staffing for the customer service division. We've also seen realized some reductions in fuel and purchase power, roughly $60 million, and that's primarily attributed to non-renewables and renewable reductions. Moving on to the Power Revenue Fund, we're going to go over the key expenditure plan summary. The first items you'll see at the top, we have columns there for the 13-14 actuals, our last completed fiscal year. Our current fiscal year approved, estimated for the current year. Those estimated costs are as of the end of March, and then proposed for the coming fiscal year. The top lines under operating expense, those first 4 lines comprise our fuel and purchase power budget. Below that, you'll see the O&M, property tax, depreciation, the city transfer. When we reported to you back in March, the city transfer estimate was 273. The estimate now has increased slightly to 275. You'll see the debt service amounts and the revenue requirement. Turning to the next page, we have a brief summary of the key programs within the Power Revenue Fund. There's one change on the Power System Reliability Program, which was the addition of the Power System Application and Technology Systems. That coincides with generation, transmission, substation, distribution. Those were already existing elements. Essentially what we've done is just reorganize so we can more clearly show those IT costs related to the Power Reliability Program. We also have the Power Supply Replacement Program, Customer Opportunity Program, Customer Services, Operating Support, and the Power System Support and General. And with that, I'm going to turn over to David to walk us through the accomplishments.
Thank you, Neil. On this slide, we'll just look at a couple accomplishments and the pictures that we presented. On the far right, you can see that's the completion of Haynes Generating Station, which we completed in 2013, removed 2 units and installed 600 megawatt turbines as our effort to reduce once-through cooling, which is about a 15-year project. The next couple projects, we've got one in place right now, Scattergood, replacing Unit 3. Then we have Scattergood Units 1 and 2, which should be finished by 2020. We're planning on starting construction in 2018. On the lower left, you can see the Beacon Solar groundbreaking. That project's near Mojave, and 250 megawatts of solar should be completed in 2015. We've got about 1,200 megawatts of new solar either in service or under construction, and a great great indicators. That's enough power for 475,000 homes. Moving down, we've got again a number of different solar projects. That pictures of the Oxnard Plaza Apartments, which was the first feed-in tariff program or project. And then electric vehicles, as you know, is a major part of our long-term integrated resource plan. We've got the Charge Up LA rebate program, offering incentives to both residential customers and commercial customers. And to date, we've provided over $2 million in rebates to support 1,300 chargers. And kind of an interesting thing, we received a grant that retrofitted 150 chargers. As new technology came in, basically the plugins were different, and finally the industry standardized that. We've standardized our chargers so that they all have the standard plugs that work on all vehicles now. So we can charge all of the vehicles that have that, and you don't have to, if you have a certain kind of car, hunt for a certain kind of charger. That consistency has been effective. This one is our infrastructure upgrades. We continue to replace poles, cables, transformers. Pole replacements are up by 42%. Transformer replacements up by about 30%. Miles of distribution circuits up 130%. You've heard SAIDI and SAFE. SAFE is the frequency of outages. This has helped reduce that by over 12%. SAIDI is the duration of those outages when they occur. Those are down by over 14%. You've also heard of the transformer failures have decreased significantly. We've had a strong replacement of that, decreased by 72%, and a very good KPI. Outages lasting over 24 hours have decreased by over 99%. 2007, we had over 28,000 outages that lasted more than 20 outages for individuals that lasted longer than 24 hours. We're under 200 at 195 for this last year, which is 195 too many, but it's really going in the right direction. And then,
out of curiosity, are we on par with the timeline that we established last year with replacing these materials? Are we ahead of the game, behind? Where are we in terms of the timeline that we agreed?
It depends on which it is. Some we're ahead, some we're behind. If you remember the like the pole replacements, we're behind because it took some time to develop those contracts. But now that those are awarded, we should be right on target with those.
I would remind you, Dave, that Commissioner Noonan had earlier requested a presentation specifically on those contracts and what the forecast was, what the plan was to meet it, and how we were tracking that work. I know that that's still being developed in the power system, but I still want to make sure that gets done.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, my concern, thank you for that. My concern was we had agreed to quite a substantial amount, and a lot of the work had not been done, and a lot of the work promised to be done within a few months. So I would like to see how we're making progress.
Sure, we'll bring that back to you.
Thank you.
Moving to the next page, this has several highlights with the Barron Ridge Renewable Transmission that we talked about. That's 65 miles of 230 kV transmission line. We've got Beacon Solar, Scattergood 3, and then the Sylmar Converter Station project. We've got the pole replacement project on the next page. That one is as of April of this year, we've got about 2,100 poles replaced, but next year our goal is 4,000 poles that will replace. And looking down a little, the design and construct for new business services, those are some good, in that tiny print on the right, there's some good information. As of January 2015, we've installed over 11,000 new services, and we're on track for about 17,000 next year. So it's showing the economic recovery and that we're doing everything we can to make sure that we can help those customers get connected as quickly as possible. Moving on, next page. This shows the kind of the capital trends over the next 5 years. And the columns show last year's actual, this year's approved and estimated, and then 5 years going forward. And a couple key highlights here. The power reliability plan, we're going up from about $364 million in this year to about $541 million in fiscal years 1910. So basically increasing by about 50% the power system reliability plan efforts. And then the other is the customer opportunities. We're increasing rebates and incentives so that customers can do what they can to reduce their energy efficiency, or increase their energy efficiency and reduce their energy usage. So we're providing significant amount of effort and rebates to help customers. Moving on the next slide with operation and maintenance. I really want to draw your attention to the yellow piece, which, well, you can't see quite the change. We've increased customer service by 18% over this 5-year period, which is really important because that's in line with the mayor's priority outcomes and the direction of the general manager, which is to increase our customer service so that we provide that try to move towards superlative customer service, and are doing that especially in the customer service center, new business support, and in solar. And as you've seen some of the reports, we've increased staffing already, and we're increasing it more so we can improve that customer service in those areas. Again, on this page, Power System Reliability Plan, we've increased by about 23% over the 5-year period. The next slide on the basically fuel and purchase power. Renewable purchases are increasing by 85 million. Natural gas is decreasing by about 105 million. So really showing the movement as we move towards more renewables and less fossil fuels. And with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to Neil to start the Water Revenue Fund.
Thanks, David. So moving right on to the Water Revenue Fund, we're going to turn to the Key Expenditure Plan summary page. Again, here you have essentially 3 fiscal years worth of spend. It's the 13-14 actuals, the current fiscal year approved and estimated, and then the fiscal year 15-16 proposed. One of the major changes here, again, is going to be in the area of purchased water, where from the prelim we had the 209 and are now showing the 272, which reflects the most up-to-date information we have on the snowpack and the water. If you take a look at the O&M line, we do show some proposed spending of $459 million, an increase of a little over 8% from the current year's approved budgetary level of spend. And again, we talked about some of the highlights on the water changes as well. Debt service is trending upwards for water, as it is for power, as we continue to spend more on our capital program, which is very necessary investment for reliability and infrastructure. And the capital investment, approximately $1 billion proposed for fiscal year 15-16, an increase of really over 39% from the current year approved level of spend in the capital area. So I think it's a really necessary investment that we have to continue to make in infrastructure and reliability for both water and power. And as we turn to the next few slides, you're going to see more of that.
Can you stay on that slide for one moment?
Sure.
How is it that the purchased water price keeps dropping when the drought keeps getting worse?
All right. I had the same question. Is it conservation efforts? Or?
Exactly.
Yes.
This is
Okay.
testimony to the fact that we're saving a lot. Originally, that number was down at to the 209 million or so. So that was when we were praying for snow a few months ago. So it's gone up from what we had hoped it would be, but it is directly reflective of conservation.
Okay, thank you. Good. So, sort of good.
So the next slide is our key programs summary slide, as we did for the Power Revenue Fund. Our key programs in the water are the Safe Drinking Water Program, Water Infrastructure Program, Local Water Supply and Remediation, Regulatory Compliance, especially Owens Valley programs, Customer Service, and Operating Support. And I'm going to turn it over to Marty to walk us through the accomplishments and highlights.
Thank you. So just to highlight a few things briefly that we've done in the water system last year. You're probably, I think most of you have had a chance to see some of our water quality improvements. They look very different. There's the low-tech end, which is the shade balls in LA Reservoir, and actually our number now is close to 97 million shade balls in LA Reservoir. We're going to challenge them to dispute the number, but it's been very effective at what it's supposed to do, and that's to allow us to reduce the amount of chemicals that we put in the reservoir, substantially reduce the evaporation, and protect the water quality. And that leads us into an upcoming project you'll see in the budget, and that's for the next UV plant that we're going to build. Top right picture is the picture of the second largest ultraviolet treatment plant in the United States, and that's up there next to our filter plant, and that went in service this last year in May. Bottom right is our Owens Lake tillage. The tillage that we agreed to do and got permission from the state has been completed, and we are on track to save the amount of water, about 8,600 acre-feet this year, that we had planned on. And then the bottom left picture is actually, since the Hedwig's Reservoir is partially buried at this point and looks like a concrete box, that's a picture of the large diameter piping coming out of the reservoir, a very deep vault. That Hedwig's Reservoir went into service in December. And has been functioning to replace Silver Lake and Ivanhoe reservoirs. Other things we're doing, conservation has taken off tremendously, as evidenced by our ability to see continual drop in our water demands with our customers responding to the mayor's call for conservation. We've had tremendous success with our turf rebate programs. We've already replaced, since it started, over 11 million square feet of turf. And so that's been a great success and the biggest program we have going right now. We have the continued water conservation efforts with the limited outdoor watering. Last board meeting, you approved the change to the ordinance. That goes to Energy and Environment Committee tomorrow and then to City Council. And so we'll have the option to go to 2-day-a-week ordinance, which we didn't have prior to your board's approval last meeting. Up right corner, water infrastructure reliability. We will do well over 100,000 feet of main line this year, in addition to thousands of feet of trunk line. So that work is continuing to go, and in spite of the spectacular breaks that have made the news, which seemingly after one is spectacular, they all become newsworthy. But with that, we actually have had quite a few less breaks this year than typical. Some of it's due to our replacement program. Some of it's due actually to the fact that we did not have an influx of really cold water this winter, which, as you may know, that every winter we get a cold slug of water, and it causes a lot of breaks. And so we really didn't see that. So actually our breaks are down pretty well right now. And then the bottom right is Tillhunga Spreading Grounds, and that our work to improve the stormwater capture. And this is in terms of, like we heard the One Water presentation, programs like this that we're already doing, part of these are what's gathered into this whole One Water view to make sure we're getting the most that we can out of these programs, and that everyone's interests are included as we develop these programs. So we're doing a lot more with stormwater capture as well.
Let me ask you this, as you know, Marty, this has always been a point that I've brought up time and again. Are we truly keeping up with technology, finding the most cost-effective piping for the right situations? As you know, I've shared so much documents and research that has been given to me about implementing plastic piping because it is more cost-effective, it isn't as labor-intensive. And during my tenure on this board, I know of 2 projects where you have used that type of technology. Are we really open to seeing whether or not we can use more of it in the future?
We are looking at the pipe materials. And there's a question. We have used high-density polyethylene, HDPE, at a couple locations. One of those projects we're finding out the goods and the bads of it right now as we're working on installation difficulties. There's a question about using PVC or other piping. We continue to look at that closely and get information from other utilities that are changing a lot of pipes out to make sure that we're following the best practices and everyone else's experiences. We are, as I say, looking for every opportunity we can to save money, but at the same time, we want to make sure that what we put in the ground is going to last as long as possible. And so, most of the pipe that goes in still tends to be ductile iron pipe. There's still a good amount of steel. There is some plastic, and we're looking at a couple other opportunities for some other plastic as well. But part of it becomes a lifespan issue for us, and so I know we've shared a lot of information in the past on that issue, but we do have our eyes open and our options open at all times.
And you know what, because I do feel so invested in this issue at this point, I would like updates if there are issues with the 2 projects that I know of. Yes. And there have been problems. I would be curious.
Yeah, one's out of service right now. I'll be glad to
I would love
some updates.
The information. Okay, great.
Okay. Going to the other highlights, this is expenditures coming up this year. Owens Lake, we have our Phase 9 and 10 dust mitigation project, which will be completed on time. So that project is moving through its environmental phases right now. Our mainline replacement program, we're continuing to increase our mainline replacement rate, going to about 150,000 feet of pipe a year, and then we're also hiring the crews to do that. At the same time, we're also looking at being able to augment those crews with outside forces. So we're working on some opportunities for that with Local 18 and a cooperative agreement, because we've had trouble getting enough people to grow our own crews to do the work. We do a great job ourselves, and our costs are great. But with the number of retirements and things we have, it's hard to keep up a workforce that's trained in that area. And so we're working ambitiously in that area to make sure that we continue to do that and push down the leak rates. RC, Susan Rogani mentioned that earlier. The RC is a major pipeline replacement. This is the pipe that brings water through the valley down into downtown LA and then is dispersed in a lot of directions. So we have a major project coming up in that. Headworks West, that's the second of the Headworks reservoirs that will complete the Silver Lake replacement. And then we have the rest of the bypass work going on at Silver Lake and what we'll be draining Silver Lake Reservoir for. I should say drinking that water down, not draining. Thank you, Marty. We will not be wasting that water. And so that project is beginning and be heavily underway this coming year. Other major projects, Elysian Reservoir, the board will remember there's a lot of discussion about that, so we'll finally be able to move forward through all the permit process. with taking Elysian out of service and putting a floating cover on there. City trunk line, another unit of that. This is another major replacement project of the oldest major trunk line in the city. So that continues to go on. LA Reservoir UV disinfection. This will be the construction of the next second largest plant in the country, and then the current one will become the third largest plant in the country. And this, again, is building these 2 UV plants, and the shade balls is a savings of probably at least $300 to $400 million over the previous project that we were going to pursue. So it's an expenditure, but it's a tremendous savings in the process. And then San Fernando Basin groundwater cleanup. We have a number of small projects and working our way toward our large groundwater cleanup project. Is this me, Neil? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of where we're seeing money being spent, we have increases in the Safe Drinking Water Program. You might say, gosh, we've replaced a lot of reservoirs. We've taken things out of service. What are we doing? Recall that a lot of the taking the reservoirs out of service incorporates putting large trunk lines in. And so they kind of count both as Safe Drinking Water program, projects, but they also help our infrastructure situation. And so they had to be categorized somewhere. In this case, they're driven really by the fact that we've removed a lot of reservoirs from service. So those trunk lines continue. That's where the river supply conduit comes in, and other reservoirs such as Headworks and Elysian. Then we have water infrastructure. That's more money going into pipeline replacements. That's mostly distribution mains. Local water supply remediation. That's where we get into groundwater remediation and water recycling projects. Things for water conservation that are capital driven. This is different than the rebate programs that are O&M driven, and then stormwater capture projects. And then regulatory compliance programs are primarily at this point the Owens Lake programs that we're looking at. On the next page for O&M has been growing very slowly. Fortunately, the big things we have driving the growth in O&M this year, about a $30 million increase in O&M. About a quarter of that is water system share in the overall function of customer service and to improve our customer outreach and efforts with the public and certainly with David's organization with the customer services group. The rest of it, the other 3 quarters, the biggest hit is in groundwater pumping. We've been pushing our ability to use whatever groundwater wells we have to augment our local supply as much as possible while trying at the same time to deal with this whole contamination issue and water conservation. And so water conservation has been budgeted additional money this year and additional money in future years because of the great public participation, and we don't want to slack off on the money that we're putting in there to make sure we get the turf rebates and the other rebates that we have. And then Safe Drinking Water Program, there's an increase in costs there associated with the changeover to chloramines and different things that we have to do in the system to make the chloramines work as our new disinfectants. Commissioner Funderburk, did you have a question about?
I did have one thing that I bring up all the time is the avoided legal costs on Owens. That's not really quantified, and I saw the number on Owens going up, and so
yes, and if I real briefly on Owens was in this one, right? Yeah. So in Owens, we have the costs that we have to pay for the projects. And then they're right. There's avoided probably close to $1 billion of costs hanging out there by doing these projects, and then there is some growth in numbers in Owens in the future years, and this is to pursue the master project, which will trade off for water. So one thing that it doesn't reflect because it hits in a different place in the budget is that as we spend money on the master project, we will save money on water purchases, and so it's a one-for-one for the customer in the near term with an overall savings in the long term. And you're right, that's not really reflected in here very well.
Thanks.
Purchase water. This is the question we had earlier. So you can see our purchase water dollars are going down. They're only going down because of conservation. Otherwise, they would be spiking up much further. So because any water beyond what the aqueduct serves, and of course this year it's about 75% of the water we're having to purchase, anything that we save is a direct savings in purchased water. One thing right now, about 1 out of every $4 that we collect in the water bill is being sent to MWD. So we're actually still more than that. I apologize. About 40% is being sent to MWD. So when somebody saves money or saves water in the water bill, they directly save money, and the city as a whole saves money.
Thank you, Marty. All right, so we're going to move on to the annual personnel resolution, or the APR, as we affectionately refer to it. Our APR for the coming fiscal year is proposed to be a level of $10,014, which is just a slight increase from the current fiscal year APR. And you'll see down below is the breakdown by the Water Revenue Fund, 3407, and the Power Revenue Fund of 6607. And if you want to look at how many of those positions are specific to the system, not related to joint operations, for example, there's just under 2,000 positions in water system and 4263 positions in the power system.
Is this because we have a lot of employees retiring, or how do we, even though I know it's one of the 5 goals that we're targeting, how do you budget the 10,000 jobs?
That's a great question. Actually, if we can turn to the next slide, which is up right now, our current occupancy is 9147. So we looked at the previous page. Our authorized position count is that over 10,000 positions. We're actually filled at 9147, and we have been making some slow progress in filling positions. Earlier this year, we were well below the 9100 mark, and we're slightly above that now. And of course, the first few months of the calendar year, we tend to see a lot of our retirements in that time frame. Actually, as of March 2015, we had roughly 218 employees that retired from the department. And we do have roughly 25% or so of our workforce that is eligible to retire, which is a significant amount of our workforce that can retire. So there is a lot of effort underway within the various organizations, power, water, joint, supported, of course, by HR and the city's personnel department, to try and fill those critical positions as we go along. What you'll see on these 2 columns is our current occupancy, as I said, that 9147. And as we look to the next fiscal year, we're funding at actually 9453. So we don't anticipate filling up to the 10,000. That would be great operationally, I'm assuming, if we had space for all those people. But that's not something we'll be able to operationally achieve. But the 9453 is, we believe, a reachable target. And a lot of those increases are really going to be in some key areas. We're expecting to see continued hiring in customer service, for example. We're going to see some hiring in power and water as well. The sustainability programs, all those folks who are processing those rebates and answering those calls, for example, in the presentation we had earlier, they're filling a bunch of their vacancies. Some positions we filled as well in the joint systems, and some additional positions in the retirement system as well. So, there's a lot of work that the HR folks are doing with the organizations, looking at succession planning, try to anticipate where we might have changes, people retiring, and in anticipation of that, looking at some bridging classifications using substitute position authorities, so that if we know that someone in a critical position is going to be leaving, we want to achieve that knowledge transfer, we can bring someone in temporarily in an interim authority, allow them to work with that person who will be retiring, so we can fulfill that knowledge transfer, which is really critical.
Neil, if I could ask, as part of the integrated resource plan, there's a human resources component where you analyze the specific classes, you project the specific attrition levels. It might be worthwhile to extract that and provide it to the commissioners as to try to get a hold of the broader picture of employment. I think that would help.
That'd be great. I know that we have HR with us too, so they're hearing the same things. Okay, so if there's no other questions on the staffing and the APR, we'll move on to really our final slide, which is just that we'll be coming back to you in a couple of weeks to get your approval of this final budget so we can transmit it to the mayor and the city council. And as we know right now, the city council through the budget and finance committee is going through their own internal hearings process. So this is that time of year again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Are there any other questions? Okay, counsel?
Yes, sir. The board shall report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention of every member present thereon in accordance with Section 54.957.1 of the California Government Code.
We will recess into closed session.